The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Any rebroadcast, reproduction, or other use of this broadcast or podcast without the express written consent of Spaced Out Radio or Spaced Out Radio Limited is strictly prohibited. Listener discretion is advised.
Bumblefoot. Bumblefoot.
Are you experienced?
Stop right there!
From high atop the mountains of British Columbia to you listening around the world, this is Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott.
They let us play with all our toys. They let us think that we're big boys. They let us make the louder noise, but we ain't rule the world. They let us think we're Superman.
You can follow us on our website, spacedoutradio.com, on iTunes and TuneIn. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, on Facebook at Spaced Out Radio Show, or on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show.
I try to act so cool, but you know I'm just a fool for you. For you. I will stop till I reach the top just to be there with you.
Dave, oh Dave, are you playing with Bigfoot and aliens again?
Dad, you gotta stop haunting the ghost. It's scaring them.
Alright, seriously, put down the pointy sticks.
Oh, the deeper I fall.
Okay! Game on! Game on! Game on!
The password is...
Alright.
Buckle up, space travelers. It's time to go for a ride on Spaced Out Radio. Mr. Bumblefoot, Dave is ready for liftoff.
I try to act so cool, but you know I'm just a fool for you.
Seriously, Dave? Really? Aren't you a little old for a tinfoil hat?
Hello, Toby. Bye-bye. Love you. Bye-bye.
Please take your seat above us. We will be able to prepare for pickup. Start. 2, 1. Boost ignition and liftoff.
I'm such a lucky guy, 'cause after all this time, it's like the deeper I go, the deeper I fall. The deeper I go, the deeper I fall. Yeah, the deeper I go, the deeper I fall.
Good evening and welcome to Spaced Out Radio. Tonight I am your host, Dave Scott, and it's good to have you along for the ride. right here on this Tuesday, September 5th, Wednesday, September 6th. If you're on the East Coast or across the pond, hope you had a great day and night. We are live right here on top of the Great White North Mountains that are very smoky here in central British Columbia tonight as the forest fires seem to be picking up again. Damn it, they just won't go away. But we are here still 7 days a week for your listening entertainment. Let's welcome in everyone listening in on our terrestrial stations. WQEE 99 Rock the Key down in Noonan, Georgia, home of the Walking Dead. We are live as well on the United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM in New Orleans, at over 160 countries around the world. We are also live at spacedoutradio.com, Spreaker, KTLK, The Fringe FM, Renegade Talk Radio out of Las Vegas, the High Plains Talk Radio Network. And if you're listening in on Revolution Radio, remember the Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Head on over to freedomslips.com and donate today. Like our music? Get your horns up for Mr. Ron Bumblefoot THAL, formerly of Guns N' Roses, currently of Art of Anarchy. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio. Hey, if you're on social media, you could do me a favor. Follow me on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. You can also connect with us and chat with us during this show at the SOR Space Travelers Club on Facebook. On Instagram, you can follow me at Dave Scott SOR. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. Listen to us on iHeartRadio in the United States. TalkStream Live. Tune us in on TuneIn. Download and subscribe to our shows on iTunes. And of course, our website is spacedoutradio.com. Now, if you want to take part in this show, you got to do me a favor. You got to sign into one of the chat rooms, either on Revolution Radio, Spreaker, the UPRN chat room, or join us on Facebook at the SOR Space Travelers Group. Or if you're on Twitter, use the hashtag Spaced Out Radio. I will connect with your questions and comments in there as well, live. If you head to our website for just $5 a month, you can become an SOR Space Traveler. You can also shop at our Spaced Out Radio store. Read the encounter online. You can check out my latest blog there. If you've had a sighting you can't explain, fill out an SOR Sightlines report. And we got some great television, great videos from Tim Doyle from UFO Seekers and Leslie Mitchell Clark's Contact TV. We have a brand new look to our monthly feature called The Spiritual You around here, which runs the first Tuesday of the month. Joining us is Rachel Kirkland, the modern shaman, who is quite excited about helping us learn about spirituality, healing, shamanism, and getting in touch with our intuitive selves. Rachel became well-versed in meditation techniques, angels, spirit guides, astral travel, remote viewing, premonitions, parallel realities, the chakras, energy healing, ancient signs and symbols, shamanic practices, mystical practices, when she started having experiences as a young child. Throughout her psychic work, Rachel has had the pleasure of serving as a medium, viewing parallel lives, channeling messages from angels and galactic beings, introducing people to their spirit guides, solving missing person cases, homicides, kidnappings, helping souls cross over. It's a wide, wide view of the things Rachel can bring to the table to Spaced Out Radio, and we welcome in the modern shaman, Rachel Kirkland, on The Spiritual You, which happens the first Tuesday of every month. Rachel, thank you so much for coming in. How are you?
I'm doing great. That was such an awesome welcome. I'm like, man, I sound so good when you talk about me. Can you just talk about me and everything I do? It sounds like, oh, man, this is awesome.
Well, you know what? We do our best. We do our best, you know. And the reason why we want to do this show is one of the things that I have heard, and I listen to our listeners quite a lot. And one of the things our listeners mentioned a few months ago was that, you know, when we first started Spaced Out Radio, we really had a spiritual focus on things. And somewhere along the lines, we kind of lost it, okay? We kind of lost it. So what we need to do is we needed to bring it back. So that's why we put together the monthly feature. It started with Elizabeth April, but due to her own business taking off, we've had to, you know, say goodbye to her, but she's still going to come back on as a guest every now and again. And from now, we got you. You're the one taking over. You are the lady. I do want to explain to our audience right now, okay, if Rachel is sounding a little far away and a little bit, you know, mumble jumbo, that's because for some reason right before the show, my Skype decided to have an update, and I'm trying to call her. We could connect, but unfortunately, her audio wasn't coming through. So what we had to do is we had to, well, let's just say we had to amplify things a little bit in order to get Rachel on the air. So what we did was we have her running through my cell phone and some speakers that I have in my studio right now. So that's what we are trying to do, is we are trying to do the best we can until I can figure out this Skype issue. So I do apologize. This really isn't the way I wanted to start things, but we're going to work things out. Rachel, why don't you start off by telling us a little bit about your history? It's been a while since you've been on this show as a guest, and you know, now that you're going to be a monthly feature here, which thank goodness your guides approve of, you know, we want to know, I want to introduce you to get a little bit more personable with our audience, because in the end, they need to learn about you. So tell us about you.
Okay, that's a broad one, but like you said a little bit ago in the introduction, I started getting premonitions as a child. I would get them every day, pretty much all the time. You know, that's just part of the way that I thought in my head that everyone was. I would see something just like a little flash, kind of like what a lot of people would think is deja vu, or just a quick little image, and then it would happen. But that's just the way my whole life kind of played out in my head all the time. But it would just be, you know, every little thing, like someone picking me up for carpool, or, you know, my dad mowing the backyard lawn, or just, it was always just everyday things. And so I didn't tell anyone about it for a long time because I didn't realize anything was out of order there. You know, you're a kid and you don't know what goes on in other people's heads. So that was kind of my, like, just modus operandi. That's the way that I always kind of experienced life, to be honest with you. And it wasn't until there were some kind of extreme events. My older brother was in a car accident, and my family freaked out and had to go to the police station. And when they went down to the police station, I was left at home with my younger sibling and was watching over him. And I was freaked out about my older brother, and so just very intuitively, I, without realizing what I was doing, basically remote viewed and went into his body to see that he was okay and make sure that, you know, he didn't have any broken bones or anything going on. And then he actually ran over a girl, and so I made sure that she was okay. I went into her body, and then I kind of panned out and did some astral traveling and viewed the whole scene, so I knew what was going on, just to give myself a sense of peace. And it wasn't until my family came home that evening and I started recounting, you know, I knew the girl's name that he had run over, I knew where the car was, where the I knew all of these details, and that was kind of a switch-o point with the family, and kind of me realizing that something was going on that was a little different than everybody else's. So that's where I started. And then in terms of where I am now, it's been a long process, and part of it is just me being me, and kind of living it out in different ways. I've done so many different things, as you mentioned, with my connections to the non-physical world, and some of which were just kind of undercover. I considered myself an undercover missionary for a while and lived in the inner city of Oakland, and just used my gifts as much as I could to help prostitutes get off the street. I helped inmates find jobs when they were coming out of prison. I helped kids in retention centers when they were trying to stay off the streets. All sorts of things that I was doing kind of incognito with spirit, just because I had a heart to help, and because I could connect, I would utilize my gifts to kind of help them make choices and bring people together that I saw ahead of time would work out, they would get the job, so I would know where to tell them to go or whatever it may be. And then it eventually got into working with the police and doing missing person work and homicide work, and I stayed mostly focused on that type of stuff and kidnapping cases for a while. And then even more recently, in the past 5 years, I kind of opened it up to the public and started doing just one-on-one sessions and meeting with people and doing a little bit more direct work, as well as healing. I got a lot more into my shamanic roots. My family's Cherokee. So I just kind of stepped into that more and more. The older I got, like I said, it, just like people, we ebb and flow, and as I've ebbed and flowed in my life, this has played out in different ways in my life.
Right. When it has played out, what's it like growing up from a youngster, to being a mom yourself now? What's it like growing up with these abilities? What's it like going through school? How easy or tough was it on you?
I think there's a degree, and I teach psychic development classes, and so there's a degree that I feel like everyone has this ability. We are natively connected in this way, and I feel like it's almost easier as a child because it's so ingrained, and as a child I wasn't necessarily seeking these things out. They were just part of my everyday life, and I didn't know that they were strange, so I didn't have a sense of, well, at least for a while, when I was young. By the time I got into kind of like middle school, I knew something was up. I remembered a lot of my past lives. I just remembered them like memories. They just felt like memories. And I realized, growing up in the Deep South, that not a lot of people believed in that. And it was strange to me because I literally had memories of them. And so there was a sense of me that just became very introverted about it. I think a lot of people do that. A lot of kids do that, things that they feel like are a little strange or out of the ordinary, or if they're being contacted by aliens, or they're seeing spirits, or they're just feeling spirits around them. A lot of kids intuitively feel spirits, and that's why they hide under the covers, or that's why they, run down the hallway at night. There's a sense of awareness of non-physical. But I think if there's not a kind of a voice to communicate it, we just kind of go introverted with it. And that's pretty much what I did. I just kind of didn't talk about it unless someone was going to get hurt. If I saw, had a premonition of someone that was about to get hurt, only then would I really speak up and say, please don't do that. You're about to, cut your finger off or something. But then they would typically do it anyways because I was a kid, and they didn't have any sense that, they didn't know I was actually seeing it ahead of time. It just sounded like some bossy little girl. It was like, you shouldn't do that. And so I didn't have much luck actually getting people to do what I asked them to do to keep them out of harm's way.
Mm-hmm. Rachel, I'm going to give you a quick call from my other phone line here to see if we've got it, because I think I may have been able to update it. So
Awesome.
If you hear me beeping in, that is me. So I'm trying right now, and hopefully that will connect. So if you see it, you could pick it up, and then I'll let you know whether or not we have you. Do we have you, Rachel? No. Darn it. This darn Skype thing. We're going to have to go the other way. I'll call you right back. All right. So Skype is not liking Rachel's phone number for some reason. So we are going to just continue it on this way, because the show must go on. That is for sure. The show must go on. I tell you, Spreaker is a fantastic venue to run a show on, but they really got to get into the game, man, and get proper studio phone numbers. I mean, there are lesser broadcast servers out there that have phone line numbers. This is ridiculous. I hate Skype. Hate Skype with a passion. I don't know why I wasn't able to hear you.
I don't know, but you know what? Have you had this happen with other spiritual people? Because spirit is just funky with electronics.
No.
I do a lot of sessions on Skype and various, all sorts of Zoom, various conferencing type of, but even Facebook Messenger, any type of video conferencing, and we always, when spirit comes in strong, and we'll get glitches and all sorts of stuff, funky stuff.
Well, either way, we have you aligned, and you know what? The show's chakras are doing well. and the phone is charged, so we're going to run with it this way, and that's what we're going to do tonight, because otherwise we don't have a show. Anyways, more about you.
Turn the volume up. We'll just tell people to turn up the volume.
Well, I've got the volume right by my microphone, so looking at the levels, everything is coming out just perfectly. Perfectly.
Oh, awesome.
There you go. There you go. So, when you started as a child, and you said in your teenage years, having these abilities start to come very strong towards you, did you feel different? Did you feel that you were maybe an odd duckling in a lake full of geese kind of thing?
Yes, but to be honest, Dave, I've always been that kind of person. I don't think that it was just the psychic stuff that made me strange. I think there was a lot going on, and I was just always one of those. I kind of like walked to my own drum, the beat of my own drum kind of thing. So I didn't. I was okay with the fact that I was different. In fact, I felt like I had a little bit of strength in that, and just like, you know what, I'm not trying to fit in with the crowd. That's where I came from. Instead of feeling really rejected, it was almost like I just did my own thing, and I didn't really get the chance to feel rejected because I just did my own thing anyway.
Right. Right, and that takes a strong character, Rachel, because in your teenage years, when everybody is so, wanting popularity or trying to figure out where they fit in, so on and so forth, that can be difficult to be that strong as a teenager going through the cruelty, that I like to call it, of high school, with the bullying and your friends in elementary school, or I don't know what you call it down in the States. We call it up here elementary school. All of a sudden turning on you, going into junior high and then senior high, and acting like they've never talked to you before in their life. It could be a difficult time. So I'm actually quite surprised that you were able to just kind of say, screw it. This is who I am. This is who I'm going to be. Love me or hate me, doesn't matter.
Yeah, and to be honest, I wasn't like going on a soapbox being like, hey, I'm talking spirits here. You know what I mean? I wasn't really vocal about it unless somebody was about to get hurt. I pretty much kept it to myself and didn't really, I did do my own thing, but I didn't necessarily, I wasn't telling people I'm talking to dead people, or, you know what I mean? Or that I remember my past lives. I didn't really get vocal about that until probably college, or maybe late teens, yeah.
So when you decided...
I remember particularly, in church, we went to the Presbyterian church, and I remember, I don't know why I remember this, but I remember I had read the Bible. And that just shows you what a weird kid I was. I had actually read the Bible like cover to cover, and the Bible's freaking huge. And I had read it probably twice by the time I was like in junior high. And I was always like really blown away with it. But anyways, I remember always interpreting resurrection as reincarnation and eternal life as having all of these lives. And being in the Bible Belt, that really resonated with me. I thought that was awesome, and I thought that's what that meant. I thought it was very clear because there's actually a lot of references in the Bible to reincarnation, and John the Baptist being Elijah, and they bring it up a lot. So anyways, I remember being in a Sunday school class and talking about a past life of mine and bringing it in, and it was like crickets, you know what I mean? And everyone's like, what in the heck are you talking about, Rachel? And then after that, it was kind of like, all right, I think I'll shut this down, take it down a notch, and maybe not go into the details.
Right. So when you went to college and you were saying that, you've already always professed your faith, the Bible has a lot to say about people like you.
Right. Necromancers. It calls them necromancers.
Necromancers. I was just going to say that. How do you define then your personal belief with something that is very contradictory in the Bible?
Well, I think there's a big difference in religion and a personal relationship with spirit. spirit or source or God or whatever you want to call it. And I love Jesus I always have. That his spirit is just phenomenal. Every time I connect, and it's just a beautiful spirit. And I have no issue with that. Like, and the parts in the Bible, again, I mean, I've read it. So the parts that talk about necromancers and soothsayers and oracles and things like this are predominantly in the Old Testament. And there's a lot of kind of like black magic associated with it. A lot of like reading blood, you know, taking sacrifices, and it's a lot more black magic or dark energy that's being used. So I don't associate with that. I don't. That's not kind of what I go into. And I do feel like in terms of the New Testament, or just the focus on love, Jesus is always talking to God. He's always talking to non-physical. He's always, you know, going off and saying that he's channeling God. He says the words that come from me are the words of the Father. And, you know what I mean? So whatever you call it, in my mind, he's channeling. He's talking to angels. He's seeing angels. There's, you know what I mean? There's a lot of stuff in there that's just exactly what I do.
Well, it's sorry to cut you off. It's funny because a week ago I had a conversation with a very religious friend of mine, and we were debating the whole God issue, because I'm a believer in God. I'm a believer in Jesus, and I have my own personal beliefs, but he keeps trying to convert me to his church. And I said to him, I said, well, let's look at it this way. I said, please tell me what the difference is between a prophet and a psychic.
Mm-hmm.
And
what did he say?
Well, he said, well, a prophet is speaking the word of God, whereas a psychic is speaking, like you said, black magic. And, you know, and I said, no. I said, if God gives a person a gift to see or to hear or to connect, is that not a gift from God?
Right.
Which is the same as a prophet.
It's all over the Bible. I mean, you know, the prophets, and, you know, even, I mean, it's all over the place. Everything is mystical.
Well, and then I got into it with him, and I'm not trying to say this because I'm not a religion basher, okay? But I got into it with him a little bit, and I said, which version of the Bible do you read? I said, do you read the original or the King James version that was written in the 11th century for King James and changed towards what he wanted to see in it?
Right.
I said,
yeah, no, that's a whole, there's a lot there.
So we got into it. We ended the conversation.
People, and again, I'm in the same boat as you. I don't want to bash it because I do feel like religion, you know, it served me as a child. That's definitely something I grew close to spirit through.
Right.
And I was very serious about my faith ever since I was little. Even though I feel like there's a point where it's almost like if you're not growing out of it, I almost feel like, are you not growing? You know what I mean? There's a point, and that sounds bad, but that's not the way I mean it. I just mean that if you're growing spiritually, you're going to grow through systems. You're going to go through, you're going to grow, you're going to keep expanding. So something that if it works for you as a child and it still works for you now, there's a sense of like, haven't you grown through? You know what I'm saying? I tried to say it nicely, but do you get my point?
Mm-hmm. I do. Let me ask you this then, because there are a lot of people out there, Rachel, and I have them in my family. I'm sure you have them within your family as well. They wouldn't be very accepting of what you do for a living because of their own personal religious beliefs. How did your family, growing up in a religious household, treat you with your gifts?
Everyone's a little different. It's funny because, you know, when your family, there's one level that like they love you and they just love you and they love me as Rachel and they know me as Rachel. And then there's this whole other aspect of like, well, there's that whole part of you, you know, and people tend to just almost like section that part of you off that they don't know what to do with or they can't place. And so it's almost like I feel like a lot of people just act like it's not there. You know, my family, my father's Cherokee, and so there is a lot there of traditions and ceremonies and things that are a little bit, you know, more just native. And I grew up in that as well, in that type of spiritual household. But I also grew up, you know, in the Bible Belt, like I said, and in the church. And my dad taught Sunday school, and, you know, we did the whole meal deal. I went through confirmation and got up in front of the church and made my statement of, you know what I mean, went through the whole deal.
Mm-hmm.
And in that environment, I think that my family will kind of comes to the point where they're like, yeah, we love Rachel, and Rachel just does her own thing.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them support it more than others. Some are more curious than others, and some have reached out at little times. I tend to get family coming to me when they're in dire straits, when they lost a job, or, you know, it's like they don't believe in what I do, but then when it comes down to something really intense in their life, they're calling, you know.
I want to read a comment, and I don't want to go down this road, but I'm going to read a comment from Jackie in one of our chat rooms here. And I think it's important in the message that we are trying to put out here. She says, "The day we were in church and our pastor said mediums are evil, and my child looked up at me and said, 'Am I evil?' is the day I stopped following religion. We still consider ourselves believers, but not leaving the interpretation up to others." And you would have had to battle that as well.
Yes. And, you know, when it comes down to it, the core message, I believe is love. So I just come back to that, you know, and I can't tell you how many people that have been quoting things at me. I've just said, you know what, bottom line, I love you. Can you accept my love right now? Can you accept it? Just flat like that, like over anything that I believe that's different than you. Can you just come to that? And if they can just accept that, then it's like, okay, then let's just let the rest go. But yeah, there's a sense that, and it depends. Everyone's experience is different in every church, or, you know, I mean, every person, just like Jackie's experience. You know, I never had a pastor flat out say to me, you know, mediums are evil, but I have had them preach the hell thing. And, you know, I've helped a lot of people transition, and I've never had that experience of, like, I have never had that hell experience. So I just don't believe that I believe people can make a heaven or hell on earth as a state of consciousness, not as a location that you go to after this life. And so there's things like that I've talked to pastors about and been kind of like, you know, it's not been true for me. So I can't say it because it just hasn't been my truth.
I just want to give a quick shout out to Kim Gandy, our Director of Business Management around here at Spaced Out Radio. She is down in Florida. Her house is right on the path of Hurricane Irma. Kim, I wanted to let you know that we are all thinking of you, and get out of there safely. I know you're leaving it in a few hours here just to head out of the state. And, you know, please be safe. And we're sending our love and prayers to you so that way you have a home to come home to. So, so much love to you, Kim. And we're glad that you're in the chat room in the SOR Space Travelers on Facebook tonight. Thank you. Kind of shocked to actually see you here, but, you know, nonetheless, I know you can't sleep right now. So, you know, just we're sending you positive vibes. Sorry, had to get that in.
No, I'm glad you did. Just focusing on that. As you're talking, I'm just focusing on her energy and sending her
good
sense of protection.
Good. Kim is my right-hand woman. She is actually, even though I'm the guy behind Spaced Out Radio, she's actually my boss. Now, she's probably going to eye roll when she hears that and be like, oh, God, Dave, really? She makes me answer to her. She makes me sheepish. You know, but I love her. I love her, and she's done very well to help me grow this little entity we call Spaced Out Radio. So I want to make sure that everybody in there, and even our listeners, and I know we have quite a few of you down in Florida, we are thinking of you, and please get out of there. Please be safe. And remember, a house can always be replaced. I know this firsthand from the forest fires that we were dealing with here. You know, grab what you can and just get the hell out of Dodge and be safe. You know, that's all that matters right now, you know, because nature is evil sometimes. Evil. It has no passion. So just get out there. Get out. So, there's my message. And I'm tired of forest fires, Rachel. I'm tired of forest fires too.
I can, yes. How long has that been going on?
Let me look here. July 7th?
Oh.
July 6th. Pardon me. Was it July 5th or 6th? 6th. It started, and they got that one out that almost burned down my area. But there's one right now that's burning about 15, 18 miles south of us. That is probably the size of about, I think, last check, around 200,000 American football fields.
Oh, my goodness.
Yes. Today we got hit with smoke. Like, everything smells like campfire. You go and start your vehicle, the first thing that comes in is the campfire smell. It's annoying. Tired of it.
Did you have to evacuate at all back in July?
I did. I was evacuated for 15 days. It was one of the most...
So you know exactly.
Yeah, so that's why I'm saying, like, Kim and everybody in Florida, I know what you're going through. Different, you know, type of Mother Nature environment, but you know what? A home can be replaced. You know, television, stereos, cutlery, you know, it can be replaced. Your life can't. So, please, everybody down in Florida and Georgia and all the southern states, please be safe. That's all I'm saying. Anyhow, how are you doing? I know you're in San Antonio. How has Hurricane Harvey affected you guys?
You know, I think it's affected different people differently. A lot of people have family and friends there, first of all, in Houston. And so there's a lot of reaching out from here. Like physically in our area, we hardly saw it at all. We prepared and thought it was going to be horrible, and we got maybe 2 inches of rain. We just didn't get much at all. It's just been mostly the panic of it, you know, all of the bread and milk and eggs and things like this. And just also gas has been crazy since they shut down a lot of the oil refineries and things in Houston. There's been a lot of people kind of stocking up on gas, and gas lines have been 2 hours to get gas and things like this. And lots of gas stations running out of gas. So it's more, I think it's kind of stirred a panic and an energy of just, you know, survival energy going on.
Yeah.
And that's really what I feel most of in the city. And then also just, obviously, on the flip side, just all that compassion that comes out. There's a lot of drives going on, a lot of people trying to, you know, that have displaced families staying with them. And so there's lots of, just even in our neighborhood, there's lots of, like, potlucks going on, you know, where people are just bringing food because they're aware that different families are housing more than one family and all sorts of things. So,
yes. That was probably, during our evacuation, one of the hardest things that I had to accept, because I think for the most of us, we're all proud people to a degree. We don't want to say we need help from a food bank, or we don't need help from some sort of safety lodge, you know, but I mean,
right.
It's crazy. You know, I remember going into one of the community halls where they had food there, you know, and I was embarrassed to take 2 apples because I thought, you know what, I only need 1. You know, I was more concerned about grabbing food and water for my pets than I was grabbing anything for myself. And then you look around and there's kids' toys and clothing and diapers and everything that could be deemed as necessity, shampoo, soap. You know, it was, it was emotionally traumatic because I'd never seen anything like that before. And I hope to, knock on wood, never again. So I know what you mean about that compassion. I mean, everybody rips on Nestle, for stealing water. And to a degree, I quite agree with that. But when you need water, and literally Nestle is dropping off crates of water, saying, take as much as you need, it is all free. It really kind of hits home that, like you said, people come together in time of need. It's not always the ugly stories that the media portrays.
No, it's quite the opposite. I feel like, at least what I'm seeing, and maybe that's just what I'm projecting and that's what I'm seeing, but it feels like people are really just going out of their way, to help in any way. I mean, it just seems like there's drives everywhere. And just like you said, just dropping off any and everything. Even there's kids at the schools, that are at our schools now, trying to just, they're letting them just kind of be in the class and participate, or,
right.
Trying to keep life moving.
Let's get back into the whole spiritual aspect of everything. I'm curious, and I always like to ask this question, because I know your hubby is probably listening. Because any time I'll probably start getting tweets from him, just like last time. But I'm curious in regards to, how do you break down to when you guys started dating? How did you break down to him? By the way, I see and hear and feel all. Do not do not try and mess with me.
I don't know that I ever tell people that. I let them figure it out on their own. I don't know that I ever, introduce myself as hey, don't screw with me, I've got eyes in the back of my head. But I always just, when I was dating, even, in college and things like this, would always just kind of check up. I would just kind of astral travel and check up on on my boyfriends, make sure, if they were out with the guys or doing something. That probably sounds horrible, but I would just kind of check in and make sure that everything was on the up and up. And I think the conversation, it's so much a part of who I am. Like, if you start and sit down and have a conversation with me, something spiritual is going to come up within 5 minutes. It's who I am, and I don't really do small talk. I'm just not a small talk person. I mean, I just always get to the core. So that's part of just who I am, and those that stick around tend to be ones that are somewhat similar to me, or at least can handle it or like it or think it's oddly endearing.
Are your kids connected as well?
Yes, definitely. I have 3 kiddos, and they're all kind of connected in different ways. My oldest, goodness, he's, I can't even remember when he started talking about, he's had all sorts of alien visitations regularly and just recounts them like nobody's business. He's just, he's always been kind of open and aware of that. Same thing with remembering his past lives. He'll talk about last time he was in a body and it was a girl and he died in this plane crash and he was sitting in the middle seat and something like, he just has the color of the seats and, of the fabric. I mean, just he's always kind of been like that. My middle child is very empathic and is more on an energetic level. Nothing gets past him energetically. I'll be downstairs, cooking, and he'll be upstairs playing on a computer or something. He's 8, and he'll be like, "Mom, did you just get off the phone with somebody and you're frustrated?" It's like he feels the energy just like that, and he won't even know, what I'm doing. It's like he can just feel it right away. So sunglasses. I remember one time we were out at a park, and I had my sunglasses on. I can't remember why I was upset, but I was upset about something, and he was like, "I know you're upset. I don't even have to look at your eyes." So there's a sense that I can't get away with anything with him. And then my littlest, she's 3, and I think she's just going to end up being kind of the belle of the ball, because that when she's much more vocal about things, and she's much more vocal about kind of like just all sorts of spirit stuff, angels, just like, oh, you've got an angel over there watching over you. Or when she prays at night, she actually like looks in places in the room and prays to those things in the room. You know what I mean? It's like she can see them and talk to them. It's not just like, oh, I'm talking in my head as I'm saying a prayer. It's like I'm talking to. She's very aware. So we'll see how they develop and what they end up doing. I always have an open, obviously I'm very open-minded and have an open conversation that they're free to talk and ask. And so I think that's a safe space for them to kind of throw in.
Did you want them to have gifts? Or was this something that you were like, I know the difficulty for me, I don't want my children to have this, but in reality, you didn't have a choice?
Right. I think it's a little of both. There are certain things that I think are a little harder. When my middle child was really young, he used to have reoccurring nightmares from past lives, really traumatic. He was in this military, and he was tortured in the military, like for secrets and all this stuff. Very physical, and he would get up and then he couldn't walk, like his legs would be. In this life, he would wake up from those. So there was a lot of trauma of him having those memories that I wish, okay, that's not something that you would wish on anyone. There's part of me is like, there's a reason we don't remember those lives. Maybe that trauma is something that we don't want to try to carry with us. But then that sense of compassion, and, my eldest is so intuitively compassionate, just above and beyond. Like, I just would just give you the shirt off his back. And, so there's stuff like that I'm just like, that's beautiful. When he's able to read someone that doesn't have a sense of communication, there's just a lot, like he'll be on the playground and it's like he can intuitively know the kid that needs the most love, and he'll just go right over to him and just, it's like he's just reading up on that and paying attention to it. So those kind of things, I'm like, that's beautiful. And yet I do know, and I think as all parents, we know that's probably, it's not that it's going to come back to bite them, but there's a sense that, like, when you are different like that, you just have to stand in the strength of it. Otherwise, you get pushed around for it.
And you know what? I can honestly say that my 3 kids are connected. My oldest daughter from my previous marriage, she's kind of shut it off for right now, but she has seen dead people since she was about 18, 19 months old.
Wow.
Yeah.
How did they know that when she was 18, 19 months
old? She would be lying in her, because we switched her over from her crib early into a little toddler bed. And she would wake up and she'd be pointing above her dresser.
Mobile?
She would be pointing above her dresser saying, girl. Oh,
wow.
Yeah, it was insane. And we had a little girl ghost in that house. And it was weird. So when she started communicating and opening up, she used to see a lot, and she kind of turned it off. And really hasn't been the same since her mom and I got divorced. But she knows she has it. She's not ready to open up yet. My 14-year-old stepdaughter has seen spirits. And since we moved up north, she is actually very connected to the fairy realm, to the point where she has actually videotaped a fairy flying in her room.
Wow. That's beautiful.
Yeah, and they are at her window all summer long. Sometimes they will come in. Other times she'll go right into our green belt where there's bears and cougars, and she'll go in there by herself, not scared, because she's like, I'm protected. I don't even need to worry. And she'll go out there and she'll sit down and she'll meditate and she'll say, yeah, the fairies will come and they'll land right on my arms.
Wow.
And then our little guy, who's 4, I'm thinking he is very ET connected. He has seen things, and Mrs. SOR has caught him seeing things, because she can see sometimes as well, even though she's more empathic. And just a couple of weeks ago, he actually got a little bit scared. He crawled into bed with us, and usually he'll sleep in between Mama and myself. And he was on the edge of the bed, and all of a sudden he woke up screaming because he said he saw a man at the end of the bed that was trying to pull on his leg to get him off the bed. And when Mrs. SOR woke...
Not funny, but I totally relate, yeah.
Yeah, and when Mrs. SOR was looking around, she didn't see anything, but he was absolutely seeing. You know, so it's going to be interesting to watch him develop. And, you know, I don't know what to do. You know, as a parent...
Well, I love that. Obviously, they're open enough to talk to you about it. So
yeah.
That's huge, that you give them a sense of safety to be able to communicate that. I think that's so important, because a lot of kids don't have that, or at least from our generation, too, that was really stifled.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And imagine how open, the more that people are leaving the church now to find their own spirituality and belief, imagine how much more open their children would be if they didn't close it off to, oh, that's just imagination or nightmares, or teachers saying, well, you should go talk to your counselor about that. I made the mistake with my oldest daughter a couple years ago when she was going through some major depression. And she was talking to her counselor at school, and I had mentioned to her counselor, and I didn't even mean to, but it just kind of blurted it out. I said, has she talked to you about seeing dead people? And the phone went silent. And all of a sudden the counselor says, no, but if she's seeing dead people, we may want to think about getting her on a medication for, and she mentioned some disorder. I said, no. I said, this is a family trait, and you've gone to school, you're educated, maybe you need to go back to school to learn that it isn't about drugs, that these types of experiences people are truly having. I said it differently. I'm paraphrasing right now. But, you know, and the phone just went silent again, you know. So,
well, I'm proud of you for defending her on that. I think, again, that's huge. And just even energetically, that generation feels that. I feel like that's why we're hearing it more from kids, because there is a sense of, you know, that there are more adults our age that are finally coming out of the spiritual closet, so to speak, saying, yeah, I did have experiences as a child, or yeah, I do feel energy, or whatever it may be. And so they're opening kind of the space for the kids to have that voice.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We only have about 2.5 minutes here before we got to go to our first break. What do you say to parents who come up to you and say, you know, I want to believe my child, but it just sounds way too hokey or way too imaginative in order to take it seriously?
And okay, so they're wanting to take it seriously?
Yeah.
It depends on where the heart of that person. If they're wanting to take it seriously, I think the main thing I would say to them is to just support their child. They don't have to support a narrative, or they don't have to support, you know what I mean? When you love your child, just let the child know that it's loved and it's safe, and you're not going to judge it. I said it, and it sounds really, it sounds really impersonal, but that you're just not going to judge that child, that you love them no matter what. And so there's a sense that, like, even if the narrative sounds too hard for you to believe personally, that you're still not quelching it. You're still leaving them room.
Do you think all kids are connected? And up until what age?
I do. I think we all are. We come, we're spirit before we're form. So that's our native state. And our native form of communication is telepathic because before we have physical mouths, we're still communicating as spirit. So it's very intuitive in who we are as spirit. So yes, I do think that all kids have the ability. I think that, in terms of our chakra systems, children's typical chakra systems don't fully develop until they're around 7 or 8. And I know that's kind of a general age, and even with these indigo and crystal kids, the things we're seeing it younger. But typically this is where all the, imaginary friends come in and, all of that. A lot of them are very connected. And I think the realm that they stop doing that, which is kind of sad, but to be honest with you, is school. Once they start to be in a very systematic, formulaic kind of environment that's not necessarily geared towards, it's not geared towards talking or sharing or growing in that way. It's geared towards listening and not taking orders, kind of. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Rachel, I'm going to get you to hold on right there as we're going to hop out for our first break of the night. Rachel Kirkland, the Spiritual You, is up on Spaced Out Radio tonight. 2 more hours. She's going the distance. We're going to get into shamanism, self-healing, more psychic information. Rachel will be with us the first Tuesday of every month. Her next appearance, October 3rd. We'll be right back, right after this.
365 days a year, we're in the field, investigating UFO sightings, talking to alien abductees, and visiting secret military locations like Area 51. We're UFO Seekers, official partner of Spaced Out Radio. Follow our daily search for the truth at ufoseekers.com or like us on social media. Catch us on Spaced Out Radio every third Monday of the month as we discuss Area 51, UFOs, and more. And also, don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube.
From coast to coast to coast, Blacklight Uncharted is taking on the paranormal across Canada. From ghostly hauntings to the UFOs flying above in conjunction with MUFON Canada, we're closely investigating what's going on in the northern skies and checking out the apparitions that walk among us. Check out our videos right here at spacedoutradio.com. We want to know your thoughts, we want to hear your experiences, and we want you to share your stories. The answers are out there, and we intend to find them.
Would you like to become one of our space travelers? All you have to do is click on the Space Travelers icon at spacedoutradio.com. For only $5 a month, you can get access to some great prizes, as well as private monthly shows, newsletters, and a members-only section on our website. Become a space traveler today.
It's paranormal news at its finest. Welcome to The Encounter. At spacedoutradio.com, The Encounter online is SOR's trusted news source for everything weird and strange going on around the world. This is news editor Eric Markham. Our team of journalists are scouring the planet for those strange stories that rarely make the mainstream. No fear-mongering or fake news here. Head over to spacedoutradio.com and encounter The Encounter.
Want to learn more about aliens, cover-ups, conspiracies, cryptids, and the paranormal? All you have to do is tune in S4 as we take over the Spaced Out Radio night, starting at midnight Pacific, 3 a.m. Eastern, each and every Saturday night, right after Spaced Out Saturdays. Hi there, this is Eric Cooper from Forest Moon Paranormal. Join me, Corey Ruse, and friends as we discuss the hot topics of the night. It's fun, entertaining, and as dark as the night. Find us at spacedoutradio.com.
Hey, this is Canadian Paranormal Investigator Mike Moore. The third Wednesday of every month, I'll be teaming up with Dave Scott to bring you Ghosts of the Great White North. Each month, we will bring on guests from across Canada to discuss their ghostly encounters. Canada is a paranormal hotbed with stories you've never heard, so we're going to bring them to you. So get comfy on your Chesterfield, grab a donut, and join us, eh?
Are you an experiencer? Have you had run-ins with strange creatures you can't explain? ETs, Dogman, Bigfoot, werewolves? They're enough to scare the daylights out of anyone. Hi there, I'm Butch Witkowski from your 4 Cop. And on the last Monday of every month, you can listen to me and the host, Dave Scott, talk about the weird and the strange being reported on Spaced Out Radio. I'm going to bring my investigations and sources, you bring your experiences, and we'll figure out the rest together. Strange Days on Spaced Out Radio. Come tune us in at spacedoutradio.com.
Want a place to share your experiences without feeling judged? We have the place for you. If you've experienced sightings or contact with ETs, ghosts, cryptids, or UFOs, and you'd like someone to confidentially look into the matter, just fill out an SOR Sightlines report. Our goal is to help you get the answers you need to the experiences you've had with our professional team of researchers. Your information stays 100% confidential. The SOR Sightlines report. Fill out your experience today only at spacedoutradio.com.
Psychic Sundays, spiritual communication, ET contact, Sasquatch in your backyard. We will have it all on Cosmic Passport with me, Elizabeth Anglin. Each Sunday, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, at spacedoutradio.com, I will take you on a journey of enlightenment. The goal is learning from the soul on out. We'd love it if you joined our experience. Cosmic Passport, heard Sundays at spacedoutradio.com.
Are you interested in advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Head to our website at spacedoutradio.com and click on our advertising tab. There, you will find an assortment of ways you can get your product out there with us, from radio commercials to banners and social media. Have a product you like our hosts to endorse? We can do that too. Visit spacedoutradio.com for more details.
From British Columbia to Northern California, Pacific North Weird has Cascadia covered. Check out our feature videos at spacedoutradio.com, where I, Vincent Zunza, and my super sleuth partner Alexandra Sullivan track down the weird and strange stories from around the Pacific Northwest, from Bigfoot to Mel's Hole and everything in between. This is what makes life exciting. So why report the normal when we can report the Pacific North Weird right here at spacedoutradio.com.
Don't have time to listen to Spaced Out Radio live? Wherever you are, the car, the office, the shower, or even if you're traveling, we're right here for you. Each Spaced Out Radio show can be found on iTunes, TuneIn, and on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. It's the perfect way for you to catch up on our shows. For more information, just head over to our website, spacedoutradio.com, and tune in to us today.
Welcome to Spaced Out Saturdays with me, Dave Cruz from Beyond the Strange. Our weekly feature on spacedoutradio.com will take you around the world discussing everything from the paranormal to the latest conspiracies from the top guests in their fields. We won't leave any story uncovered. Spaced Out Saturdays at spacedoutradio.com starting 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern.
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. And hit us up on Twitter using the hashtag SpacedOutRadio. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Welcome back to the second hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Good to have you with us. Tomorrow night on the program, Matt Landman joins us. We're going to be talking chemtrails. What are they? How bad are they for us? We'll find out more at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern time at spacedoutradio.com. We want to welcome in everyone listening in on WQEE 99 Rock the Key down in Newton, Georgia, home of The Walking Dead. We are live as well on the United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM in New Orleans and over 160 countries around the world. Good to have you with us as well. We're also live on KTLK, The Fringe FM, Renegade Talk Radio out of Las Vegas. And if you're listening in on Revolution Radio, remember the Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Head on over to freedomslips.com and donate today. Bill Cardwell has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Juglandacious. Juglandacious is your password. Make sure you use it wisely, Space Travelers, as Bill sets a password each and every night right here on the mighty SOR. Now, if you want to follow us on social media, you could do so on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Use the hashtag Spaced Out Radio if you want to connect with me live during the show as well. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. You can also join us in our chat room on Facebook, the SOR Space Travelers Club. All you got to do is sign on in and chat. It's that simple. And some good people in there. Make sure you have good hair or a good beard. One of the two, unless you're a woman. You know? You can also follow me on Instagram, Dave Scott SOR. You can listen to us on iHeartRadio in the United States. Tune in, iTunes. Make sure you subscribe and download our shows there. And we're on TalkStream Live as well. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including joining the SOR Space Travelers Club for $5 a month. You can rock out to some Bumblefoot. You can shop at the Spaced Out Radio store, grab a t-shirt. You can also read The Encounter online or watch UFO Seekers or Contact TV videos. Everything at spacedoutradio.com. Tonight, we have The Spiritual You with Rachel Kirkland, as she is going the distance tonight, talking everything about your own spirituality, what you want to learn. Your questions are welcome. I do want to make mention, because we are having some technical difficulties with Skype tonight, it's difficult for me to chat, because I really don't want my keyboard noises going through the computer, because Rachel is actually hooked up through my cell phone. For some reason, she can hear me on her end. I can't hear her when she is speaking, so we got to figure that part out. But nonetheless, we're running the show. We're here. We're doing good. Rachel, welcome back.
Thank you. And you're like a maestro. You figured it out. We just rigged it up.
Exactly. The show must go on, as Queen used to sing.
I was going to say that.
Before we continue, I want to get to a question from our audience, because we always like to include them starting in hour number 2. And this one comes from Claudia. And Claudia, we're glad you're back in the SOR Space Travelers. Thank you for being with us. We've missed you. I know it's been a busy summer for you. But Claudia says, seems when you're happy, spirit gets excited and comes forward and joins with consciousness. And when with one with spirit, we can use the spirit's eyes, mind, and body to access beyond the veil and enter other dimensional realms naturally. It seems that when she feels it, when spirit is lit up, so she says, in quotation marks, and is in the lead, is that how it happens to you as well, Rachel?
I would say yes. I mean, I don't feel like there's ever a time that it's turned off, so much to say. But yes, I love the fact of her saying like that she feels lit up in those times. Like, I think depending on what higher dimensional realm you're going to or what vibrational entity you're connecting to will feel differently. Certain entities will feel vibrationally different. And if she's connecting to very high vibrational beings, angelic realm, or those that, even cosmic entities that are very high vibrational beings, it will have that elated bliss, very loving energy, because that's the vibration in which she's tuning into.
Follow-up.
So yes, I do have that. It just depends on kind of like the frequency I'm tuning into. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And Claudia follows it up with, have you yourself, Rachel, had a near-death experience or a death experience that opened the veil so you could see into other dimensions?
I had a near-death experience. I didn't have anything. No, I wouldn't say that I've had a near-death experience. The reason I'm hesitant to answer that is because I realized a while back that because I remembered my past lives and I could go to them very consciously, like I could just sit, in a time of meditation, or just, when I would be sitting outside, just kind of zoning out, I could focus and just say, okay, I want to remember that life or a certain lifetime. And I would remember it. And at some point, I don't know when it was, but it dawned on me like, I can just go to the death scene and I can stay with the body. And then I can just see what's next. You know what I mean? And so because I could kind of tune into any place within that life. So I would frequently do that, go to a past life that I was in, view the life and view the death, and let myself go through that death again, and then stay with my spirit as I transitioned and lived out part of my time in the spirit realm, and then be there as I chose my next body, and then re-entered. And so it wasn't so much that I've had like a one-time near-death experience that unlocked things, but it's more so that I've played around a lot with being on the other side and letting myself step over there and unlock things that way.
When you talk about interdimensional contact, or you've been into different dimensions, what is that like? Explain that for our listeners.
So, this is just me, and I don't know how it's translated in everyone's body because it's energetic. So, and everyone's physical body processes energy a little differently. Just like our metabolisms are different, we process energy in different ways, and so we feel energy in different ways. Now, there may be some similarities, but I'll just preface by saying this is just the way it feels for me. When I'm connecting and I'm kind of mostly in a meditative state or a daydreaming state or a actual dreaming or the in-between state, like right before you wake up, those are common times when there's like interdimensional travel. And if I'm being very specific, like I want to connect with a being that's a fifth dimensional being, or, you know, an inner, if I'm going to a certain dimensional space that I'm being very specific about trying to dial into, the way my body feels it is I don't know why, but it feels a little bit like caffeine in my cells. It feels like I'm literally like vibrating faster, but the outside of me feels very calm, very meditative, but the inside of me feels like I almost speed up, or my cells or my particles speed up a little bit. So it's like I'm very precise and able to focus in really quickly, like my vision is really fast, as if it's my internal vision, so my eyes are closed typically, but whatever I'm seeing, it's like I'm able to turn and look at it and zoom in really quickly and go all the way down to like every single particle and cell, and then zoom way out if I want. Depending on the dimensional space too, the colors will look different. Like they'll be more kind of iridescent-y, you know what I mean? Like they just look like the colors look, I don't know how to explain that. I guess just shiny. I know it's horrible. It's a horrible description. It's not at all like that, but it's like they're just more colors on the color spectrum, or that you're just aware that they're not our regular colors. There's a sense of having a luminosity to them. Again, it depends on what dimension I'm tuning into. They look a little different, and they also will include like a heat. Like colors will feel warm to me at certain different dimensions. They'll start to almost like penetrate. Like there'll be no form in between what you're seeing and what you're being. So it varies, but that's what it feels like to me.
I have had a dream one time, and I don't know if it was a dream or it was an actual astral travel type scenario. I really don't, because I've never really astral traveled, or not that I know of, where I actually met myself in a very dark dimension. And I was with Mrs. SOR, and the person whom I met, it was, I don't want to use the term pure evil, but it was very, very dark and very, very mischievous. And literally, I remember myself on that dimension saying to me, if you weren't me, I would kill you right now. And everything was dark. I don't recognize the town it was in. It was rainy. It was cloudy. There was no stars. There was no moon. It was just street lights, and the street light at the corner where I ran into him, it was burnt out, And, you know, it was eerie. It was eerie.
Mm-hmm.
And I still don't know if it was a dream or an actual happenstance. You know, the skeptic in me says it was a dream. How do you tell the difference?
Well, you know, when you're talking, to me that seems like a parallel universe or like a various timeline, like timeline skipping. You familiar with that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So to me, that sounds more like that because it feels like it's in the same dimensional space. When I think of dimensions, I think of space, literally like a flat piece of paper is a two-dimensional object. A point is a one-dimensional. So it's more so the space that you're in. If it felt like a city, then it almost feels like it's still in a similar dimension, but it almost feels like a separate timeline or parallel reality to where things were different on the planet. You were living out a different life with a different pattern, you know, in terms of like light and dark within yourself. So to me, that's what it feels like. Because just of the situation, I guess I would just have to tune into it. Like when people come to me with dreams like that, and we do it in dream interpretation, like, and they're looking at, well, was this a past life? Was this something? If it felt like it was you currently, and people that are currently in your life, or somewhat like you've met them before, or there's a sense that it's similar to this lifetime, but it's just a little different. Those, to me, feel like timeline skips or parallel universes. So there's not a sense of past or present. They're almost on the same timeline with just a little shift. And so the shift it's different with each person. Like yours felt like it was more a light and dark shift because you were in a very dark realm or dark timeline. But, you know, the fact that things were similar in terms of you were still you, I would also look at just like the cultural, like what were you guys wearing? Was there a sense of time frame to it? Did the buildings look the same? Did they feel like there was, you know, in terms of just like era? And sometimes even geospatially, we'll feel like we're on a different place on the earth. Sometimes there's just a weird geospatial awareness in those dreams. Even though it's like we don't know, we're just like, it just feels like I'm on this side of the globe.
Right. And I can understand that. With me, though, if I use me as the example, and I'm sure there are others like this, I don't normally remember my dreams. That's how I have kind of been able to figure out for myself in my own spiritual enlightenment if something truly happened to me or not. I couldn't tell you what I dreamt last night or the night before or the night before, but I can tell you when I've had ET encounters. I can tell you about this other me that I met. You know what I'm saying? Like, I know I'm not the only one out there who doesn't remember their dreams, but these ones really seem to stick in my head, almost like they are reality. So for me, I've been able to figure out that when I do have an experience, if I can remember it, even snippets of it, it has to be true.
Beautiful. I love that so that's why. And to me, I'm like, well, that's exactly why you don't remember your dreams, because you gave yourself a sense of like validation. Like that's very effective for you because you know, okay, that wasn't a dream. Otherwise, I wouldn't remember it.
It's still frustrating though, because the skeptic inside of me, Rachel, and I'm sure a lot of other people are like this, say, well, maybe I just remembered it because I'm into these topics.
Sure, they're not mutually exclusive. You know, we tend to, on this, that's how, you know, in duality or in this earth with the skeptic in us, we tend to think one belief or that, oh, it happened during my dream state, or I ate a, you know, spicy burrito right beforehand, or whatever it may be that may have moved you into that state. We tend to think that cancels out the validity of these experiences, and it doesn't. It doesn't. They're not mutually exclusive. They don't, you know what I mean? They don't cancel each other out. It could be that you had the spicy burrito and that you actually had an alien encounter, you know, or that you were dreaming at the same time and they were utilizing your dream space. It doesn't devalidate it.
Well, I can tell you this. If I'm dreaming about a spicy burrito, I'm going down that road every time. You have no idea. I feel like such a pig. I have to tell you about Saturday. now that you bring it up. So Saturday we're driving home. It's actually kind of a sad story too, not for me, but we're
spicy burrito.
Well, kind of. So we're driving home, and because I went to Guns N' Roses in Vancouver on Saturday night, and we stayed the night at my parents', and then we're driving home Saturday morning. We literally came around this corner and saw a fire burning. And we were about the 15th or 20th car, somewhere in there. And there was a fatal accident that caught a vehicle on fire that started a forest fire. So the police arrived and said the highway is going to be closed for a number of hours. We just wanted to get home, and so we decided to take the roundabout route. So we drove another hour and a half south to take the roundabout route. I said, you know what? Because there is no Taco Bell in my town. It's not even a McDonald's. I stopped at Taco Bell, and I nailed down 3 of their big burrito supremes. I'm not going to lie. I pigged out. You
know what's funny?
I hammered
That's like
them.
my favorite restaurant. It's so funny. And I'm a vegetarian, but there's not hardly any other drive-thrus or fast food that has vegetarian options. That's like the bean burrito is like, it's a staple.
You know what? I pounded 3 of them. You know, and I didn't feel guilty at all.
No, and it probably cost you $5.
No, not up here. Not up here.
It didn't?
I think there were...
my bean burritos are cheap. I'm like, I'm a cheap date. I get a bean burrito, and I'm like, $1.
No, not up here. I pounded them hard. I did. You know, and I don't.
And then
like
you
I said,
regretted it later?
No, I did not. I didn't feel any guilt or shame whatsoever. I pounded them damn burritos. I put as much hot sauce as they would give me on those. And I'll tell you, I slept great without a conscience. My stomach was maybe arguing with me, but mentally, I was in the peak shape of my life.
You're cracking me up. I can totally see this. I can just see you in your complete, like, happy zen space, like, with these burritos all around you.
I was happy. I'm not going to lie. I was very, very happy. You know, it was weird, though, because when we actually, we had to drive back through that area where the accident was, and, you know, the one thing about, and I'm not great intuitively, I don't really trust my opinion. Elizabeth Anglin, who is here on the weekends, would tell you that's BS, you know. Mm-hmm. But the skeptical journalistic side of me just doesn't allow me to believe as much as I want to believe. But it was weird because I didn't see it, but I could feel when we drove past, as we were encroaching on the accident, the vehicles were still there, and it was 1-lane traffic because it's a 2-lane highway. And when we drove by, I could see that's wrong. I could feel the one spirit wandering around, kind of lost, like, what the hell happened here? What is going on? Where am I? Where's my family? You know, it was, you know, it was very sullen, and you just can't stop and say, come to me, let me explain what happened. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's funny. It's not funny, but it's strange. I have had several times it happened to where the car in front of me or a couple cars in front of me has gotten into a car accident, a fatal accident right in front of me, and I've been the first car to pull over. And you're supposed to stay with them until, you know, an ambulance gets there or a police car or whatever. And in several instances, I've helped people, you know, transition right then, like just from a car. I mean, that just never happens. I don't know why. It's happened to me multiple times.
Well, I think for me it was a little bit traumatic because I was there so soon. I didn't see the accident happen, and there were other people helping out by the time I got there. But to know that, you know, here I see the wife and the child. The child has an injury. He's screaming on the side of the road, and they've got him laying down. The wife is in shock, and they don't even know that that the husband and father is dead in the truck.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Right. That was a pretty harsh reality for me. And, you know, like I said, I mean, you want to... I don't mean this to be a downer. Damn it. You know? Seriously. You know, but how do you deal with that? I mean, there's... I'm lost.
It's tricky because there's not... It's like you don't want to have any disrespect for what's going on, but there's a sense, too, that there is really no death. It's just the leaving of the physical form. And that there is sadness in that. I'm not going to, downplay that. And that is a difficult thing to deal with when we are left on this side. But on the other side, I'm just not sad for them. I know that probably sounds horrible, but they're typically in such a better place. Like, they're just, in that situation, like, I would have just helped him transition over if he's having a hard time, understanding what's going on.
Yeah.
And, especially if you're seeing it and feeling it, I would have been like, that's probably spirit knocking on your little door, Dave, going, hey,
oh, I know.
Help this little guy.
You know what, though? I can honestly say, though, last year, a good friend of mine passed away from a heart attack. And he was more closer with my best friend of 28 years. And he came to me. And, hours after I found out, I started having an absolute anxiety attack in regards to that I had to help him because he was quite atheist. And I contacted a friend of mine, Samantha Mowat, to walk me through because I felt like I had to go in and help him. And so I went in, helped him out, and I told a friend of mine, another friend of mine, her name is Lynn, about what had happened. And Lynn went and told his sisters and his niece. So the niece contacted me, started chatting with her. I said, look, I really don't feel comfortable in doing this. This is what I saw. I said, but if his twin brother finds out, I said, I'm in a heap load of trouble. Keep it quiet. Well, long story short, months later, the twin brother finds out, calls me up a few days before this past Christmas, and literally threatens to kill me if I talk to his family or anything anymore about it. In the meantime, this is spread there to the point where the mother of my friend is contacting me trying to explain what I saw. Okay? And I'm not going to...
I know. Why would he be angry that you saw it?
Because he...
Was there anger that you were trying to help him cross?
Yeah. No, it was more so anger because they're non-believers. They come from a very atheist family, and apparently I was freaking them out.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And so I literally had to tell the mother and the niece, please don't contact me anymore. Your son has threatened me, and I really don't want to be involved. And shortly after that happened, I got a text message from my best friend of 28 years saying, you are sick, you need mental help, do not contact me anymore.
That's so harsh.
Yeah.
Well, in your sense of just your own integrity, you feel like you did the right thing?
No, I didn't. I knew I should have shut up. But you know, I thought I was helping, but it was weird because I could feel it getting out of control. And I knew that one day my phone was going to ring from the twin brother who was absolutely going to lose it on me. And that's exactly what happened. So I was prepared for his phone call. And, you know, I'm not going to get into details about his phone call, but there was a lot of swear words on both ends. And afterwards, I said to him, I'm not contacting your family anymore. I said, because he thought I was reaching out, going all haywire on them. And I said, actually, it's the opposite. I said, your family has been contacting me. And if you ask them, they'll even tell you that I said I'm not comfortable with doing this. Right? So there are, how do you deal with people who are that against what you are doing? It might be a family member. Like, say a sister comes in wanting to talk to her deceased brother, yet the other brother doesn't want to have anything to do with it.
Yeah, it happens. And I would say you deal with each situation kind of uniquely. But, you know, I always have to just go with my own. That's why I asked you, like, with your own sense of integrity, I just have to go with my own heart. Like, I'll have to just get quiet and tune in and ask from my highest faith, like, what is the most relevant thing in this situation and the highest good for all involved? And then I have to go from there, even if the highest good is sometimes, you know, family members that don't talk to me anymore, family members that, you know, they blame every little thing that goes wrong with my kids getting sick, or with, you know, oh, that's because she deals with, she lets in spirits. You know, it's like every little thing is, that's sort of negative karma coming back to get her anytime I have a cold or something, you know, there's, because I'm open to it. Or there's the sense that some people, I know, I think just because of what I've seen, and I know in my heart of hearts I'm coming from a place of love, I don't feel bad about that. I don't have any source of guilt about that, because my heart is very pure of where I'm coming from. And that is that. And people's judgment, what can you do? It's their judgment. It's always going to be theirs. And I will have one person that loves me for doing one thing and the other person that, you know, despises me.
Right.
And I have had people come back, 10 years later and say, I couldn't admit to it then, but what you said was right on and it changed my life. And you know what I mean? I have had that happen where people that have gone off on me, or husbands or wives have said, oh, you ruined my marriage, and it's just such horrible things, and then come back 2 years later and say that was the best thing in my entire life. I've had this sense of redemption in certain ways, and I've seen so many people healed and just truly transformed. So it's like I know in my heart of hearts that's what I'm doing it for. That's, it's not from a sense of trying to make anybody else happy, but just being totally present and in love in that moment. So I can't, and then however they receive it, I kind of just have to tell myself it's on them,
Have you ever been threatened?
Yeah, I have. When I was doing all that kind of undercover missionary work in the inner city, of course, I'm in the inner city, and so there's a lot of stuff that went down there, but I had a gun pulled on me at one point. I had all sorts of intense, physical altercations and all sorts of stuff.
How do you find the strength?
Yeah.
How do you find the strength to keep on doing what you're doing?
I love it.
Well, and let me just expand on that for a minute, Rachel, because a lot of people out there would walk away or back off and say, you know what, this gift is a curse. It's not helping.
Yeah.
It's scaring me. It's putting my life in danger.
Yeah. I think at times I have done that. At times, you talked about your daughter and how she had kind of blocked those things off. There was a time I blocked things and didn't want it, and just got very, to be honest with you, when I was younger, I just got really frustrated that every time I tried to help someone, they wouldn't listen. I'd be like, you're going to break your arm, and they'd do it anyways, and they'd break their arm. And then I got very frustrated with spirit of like, why do I see these things if it's not helping anyone? And so for years, as a teenager, I did block it. And so I've been through that side of it. And then when I kind of came to a place within myself where I wanted to open it back up, I think I just, sometimes it still is hard. I'm not going to lie. Like, because I'm constantly growing and I'm constantly on being pushed to the edge of something new, and Spirit's showing me something. I'm just like, really, Spirit? I mean, goodness gracious. I thought I was crazy before. I'm really going to be crazy now. You know, it's like, it's just, you know, it's one thing. It's like one thing to say, oh, you know, I can communicate as a medium. It's another thing to say, oh, I can communicate with galactic beings. And then it's another thing to say, oh, you know, I'm getting all of these, you know, clients, they're getting healed of AIDS or something that people think is just impossible. It continues to where I still have to push myself out beyond my comfort zone. My comfort zone keeps expanding and Spirit keeps asking me to step up. And sometimes I do feel like Joan of Arc or something, you know what I mean? That I'm just like being put to the edge of it. But part of me, I know my relationship with Spirit, and I can't get away with not doing it. Like, it will eat me alive. If I know that Spirit is telling me to do something, my conscience, whatever you want to call it, like, I cannot freaking not do it. It's like it will just eat at me and eat at me and eat at me. And I will get physically sick. I cannot not do it when I feel, and when I know in my heart of hearts I'm supposed to be doing something or saying something or sharing something, I have to do it.
When you decided to open up again,
Mm-hmm.
were your gifts coming back stronger than they ever were before, or did you have to work on developing them?
Both. I didn't get those premonitions the way that I had as a child. Those never came back like that. And I think when I was a child, you know, there was no sense of control over it then. It just came and went. It came and went. It was just, that's the way that my mind flowed. And my mind does that now, but I have way more control over it. It's just that kind of like my cognition grew up, you know what I mean? My brain developed. And so it kind of got used to how to integrate those images a little bit better. And so that, it never came back quite the same way because my brain wasn't the same, and my body, you know, I process things differently. And same thing with, like, I used to have memories of past lives, but I wasn't always sure what that was. I always had these kind of weird memories that felt like they were like these thought bubbles that had nowhere to attach them to my life. I was like, I know I had that memory, but, like, when in the heck did that happen? Or, like, you know what I mean? Kind of like you were saying about different timelines or things like this. So I would have these kind of tangent memories, and it wasn't until I started unblocking myself that I was able to put some sort of storyline to it and realize, okay, this is a past life I'm remembering. These are all different pieces of that puzzle. It took me a while to kind of put that back. The rest of it, I started to be way more proactive. Before, I was very reactive. Things just came, and then I dealt with them as they came to me. Kind of like you said, your friend, you know, showed up. He showed up, and then you're like, okay, well, I'm going to have to deal with this now. That's kind of how it was when I was younger. And then after I started unblocking it, it was a conscious choice, and it really changed the way I received information and connected with Spirit, because I think I just switched it from that reactive role to being very proactive, to seeking out, like, how can I strengthen my, you know, remote viewing, and how can I started being way more proactive about viewing various timelines or viewing futures, or, okay, well, can I do this? And then can I go, you know, I would try a lot of different things. And like I said, trying to see my past lives and stay with myself through the death scene and see, oh, can I play around in the in-between world? Do I have a job? You know, I really, like, pursued it way more proactively. So my gifts came back, but they came back differently just because I was older and I sought out way more kind of like direct and specific things. I took a psychic development class, so I actually knew what the words were. Like, I had never heard of remote viewing. You know, I was just doing it kind of intuitively as a kid, but I didn't know what that was. So I had to kind of learn the language and that kind of thing.
Let's move on to past lives, because you deal with past lives as well. And we'll get to Claudia's question right now. She says, when you are shown your past lives, is it an instant recall to you? And has it helped you understand where some of your fears came from in this lifetime because of what actually happened to you in a past life?
For sure. Yeah, she's right on. Yes. Yes. I can't remember when this was, but at one point when I was working on unblocking my psychic block, I asked Spirit, like, what would really help me unblock? And they said hypnosis, past life regression, basically, via hypnosis. And so I said, okay. And I knew one lady that had taught my psychic development class, and I don't even know if she did hypnosis, but I asked her to do it for me. So she was like, all right, I'll do this. You know, it wasn't like her main focus, but when she started kind of taking me down, I think I just had a very clear, intentional focus to see those things. And that first thing that came up was that I saw this image of, I was looking down at my hands. It's basically me being burned at the stake for my gift. And my hands were wrapped in this rope, and they were right in front of my face, like almost kind of like prayer hands, but right in front of my face. And I just remember watching the skin kind of crank. It was just really, just watching the skin on my fingers just go. And I think I died from the smoke, from breathing in the smoke, because I just started coughing. I couldn't breathe. And I kept saying, I don't want them to burn me. I don't want them to burn me. So there's this huge release that was part of my stopping myself with my psychic gifts that came up from remembering that past life. And I did actually, in that moment, intuitively bring Jesus in. Just asked him to hold a space of safety for me, because as a child, I had felt very safe in that energy. And so that was a native, energy I just brought in, asked him to kind of hold a safe space. And he showed me, he let me live in his body in that moment where he died on the cross. And he was like, it takes like 2 seconds, Rachel. Like, why are you freaked out? Why would you live your whole life in fear of 2 seconds? And it's just like 2 seconds of pain. Like, it's not worth it, to block your entire lifetime of gifts for like 2 seconds or 2 minutes even. It goes by so fast. And I had this realization, it became very real to me that, why does that matter? It goes by so fast and then it's over. And it's not worth, creating this entire life of holding myself back for that fear of the pain. So I released that. It gave me a lot of understanding, too, of just the fears of physically speaking up or healing people. In that lifetime, I had healed this child and was burned for it. So that was another big realization of just like letting that go and letting myself stand in it. So yeah, it's huge. I feel like there's a lot of realization and growth. And even with clients, when, it's not that they always come to me for a past life session. Some do, but sometimes it just comes up because they're dealing with people that in the past life dealt with the same issue, or they're kind of working through karmic cycles that are still playing out, and they just show up. I just see them psychically, and so I'm like, oh, well, this is an issue you dealt with back then, and this is what, or if we're even clearing chakras. Sometimes there's that throat chakra, seeing somebody's throat split because they spoke up against authorities or whatever. It comes up a lot in terms of our energetic patterns.
How many past lives can you recall?
I don't know that I've ever sat down to try and number them out, to be honest with you. And I don't know that when I tune into them, I tune into them via energetic reason. So if there's something that's going on in my life that I want understanding, or a person that I meet and I feel like I've known them before, or there's something like that, that triggers it, then I tune into that energy. Like, I want to tune in, and I set kind of my intentional focus to see where this relationship started, or see where this issue started if I have, like, this fear or whatever it may be, or, feeling of poverty or afraid of whatever it may be. And so I tune into that energetic frequency, and then I'm shown those lives. So it's not like I'm going through them like a book. I'm just seeing which ones are tagged to certain emotional things I'm trying to heal or certain relationships. So, and when I see them, it typically looks like a big deck of cards or something that I'm thumbing through, and then I pick one out. So I don't even know. Like, number-wise, it's just, I would say it's infinite, because we can go forward and backwards. And I can tune into them anytime it's relevant. You know what I mean? They're always accessible.
Hold on, you can go forwards and seeing what is coming?
Well, on the other side, there's no time. There's only the now. Uh-oh, did I lose you?
No, what's your next life then?
Oh, okay. Well, I decided a while back that I was going to basically create that life in this life. So I don't want to end this life. I want this life to continue to cycle in. So it will be the same as this life. I'm just going to cycle it into the next. We'll see how that goes, but that's what I think.
There's a lot of people, Rachel, out there who look at their lives today, and it seems like they have this giant black cloud that is hovering over them. If something will go wrong or can go wrong, it will go wrong. People turning on them, and it might not even be their fault. What causes something along that line? I've talked to other people before who believe that it is some sort of apathy left over from past life experiences.
It can be a lot of things. It's hard to generalize a statement like that, because everyone is so individualized, and their past life cocktail or whatever they bring into this life is equally unique. And sometimes it is energetic. I don't really like the word karma. That's the only word we kind of have for it. But to me, it's more like this pattern, like a mathematical pattern, that we create. And the pattern is still playing out. Or I use the example a lot of times of like dropping a big rock into a puddle, and the ripples just are still rippling out. And so the karma is kind of like those ripples vibrationally that are still playing out in our subconscious, whether we're aware of it or not. And so they kind of pop up in these unconscious ways. Like, we don't mean to create these things, but they're just coming to us because they're in kind of our unconscious programming that have kind of been set up. So some of that plays out. Sometimes there's other things too, of attachments and, just negative energy and different locations having different energies, and your energy not being in harmony with the energies around you. There's all sorts of things that kind of can have that sense of that dark cloud that you're talking about.
So do you think it's self-mutilation, if I can use that term, that people are carrying over to this next lifetime? That's the reason why, then? Because they just can't let go of what's happened in past lives?
Not really like that. Like, it's more, just like that example that I used. I was blocking my psychic gifts. It wasn't that I was felt like I had this black cloud hanging over me, because I was burned at the stake in a past life, and that was gonna mess up my whole life in this lifetime. It's just that it was an unconscious level, and when I got very conscious about it and got to a place where I was like, I want to work through this issue, then I saw kind of the underlying pattern. Just like if we were to go through traditional therapy or psychotherapy or something, when they're like, okay, well, let's look at the unhealthy negative patterns that we've created here, or habits. It's like that. They're just a little deeper. And so they're kind of playing out on an unconscious level. I don't really think of it like, oh, you did something bad and now you're kind of reaping it. It's more so just like you set up these patterns, and they play out until they're really relevant for you to work through them.
Question for you from John. John is saying, what does it look like to have visions of future lives?
So I'm also a little weird in that I still believe in free will. A lot of psychics don't, but I to me, I call them future probabilities. They look, because they can shift. It's like viewing all these multiple timelines, and I tune into them, and it looks just like where it's the same space that you would have an imagination, or you would have a daydream. You see it in your internal sight, or just like a dream. You're not using your real eyes when you're seeing these things. And this is just me again. I don't know what it looks like to all psychics, but they look like tunnels to me, or like wormholes or something. There's a sense of like distance, and for some reason it looks tubular to me, like a tube or some sort of cyclone kind of thing. And I can just zoom in or zoom out, and depending on how far out I go is the timeline that I'm attaching it to. So if I want to see something 20 years from now, say, then I kind of go towards the end of that little wormhole or that little tunnel and look, and I'll typically like pan right in, and it'll kind of drop me in to like a particular scene. Like I'll just see a scene in the day of 20 years from now. And it will be, two people watching a movie or whatever the scene is that I see. And then if I want to see a different option, say, and this is what happens a lot of times when people are trying to make decisions, they say, well, should I divorce this person or should I not? So then we look at these two options, and I see, okay, 20 years from now, if you choose option A, this is what I see. This is the scene I see playing out. This is how you feel when I'm in your body. This is how the situation, you're interacting with it. And then let's look at option B. This is what I see 20 years from now. If you choose option B, this is the scene I see playing out. This is how you feel when I'm in your body then, whether you feel happy or you feel content with that decision or whatever it may be. And visually, they look like little scenes, like, like a deja vu, or they happen really quickly. You know how deja vu almost is like the whole thing is seen in one instant? Yeah, it's like that. It's in the now moment. It's like, and then I have to, that's something I've kind of learned to strengthen, is this, what I call zooming in or zooming out, like a camera lens. So I'll zoom in and be able to kind of move and shift my perspective. Like I can go into someone's body so I can feel energetically what's going on with them, like their emotional body, and, not just the event, but I can also go into a certain perspective of it, or the other person's body, and see how they're, say there's an argument going on, I can see it from different people's body and emotional perspective, and pan out and then see it a little better in terms of just like specifics. That panning in and panning out is a lot of like what was used with missing person cases or kidnapping cases or things like that, where I would have to try and find evidence. So we would pan out a little bit and try and find like a street sign or a number on a license plate or things like that.
Are you?
I kind of went roundabout there.
Are you always on? And what I mean by that is a lot of psychics try and turn themselves off so that way they're not continually inundated. Yes,
I couldn't do that. No, I definitely am not always on. And I don't feel comfortable, like, just out of integrity. I always ask people when they sit with me, I say, is it okay with you if I go into your body? Is that, like, I always ask permission. I don't want to, people's thoughts just when I'm walking down the road, so I turn it off. I had to learn to do that. As soon as I unblocked my psychic blocks, when they did start coming in, the first thing that came in was all the emotion, like empathic stuff. And I started just, I'd be walking down the street and I could feel every emotion in every house. And it was like, I would know, like, see these images of like, oh, there's child abuse going on in that house. And then I'd walk to the next house and it just, I was like inundated. I couldn't go anywhere. So I learned really quickly how to turn the faucet off and on.
So how do you, we only have about 2 minutes before we got to go to break. How do you turn it off?
It works different for different people, but for me, it's very intuitive now. But at the beginning, I used visualizations like that faucet, and I would literally see it like turning off in the crown of my head. Like I would see it like tightening. I also had little affirmations, like if I felt like things were getting really kind of obtrusive, I would say, I surround myself in the white light, and only what is for my highest good can enter here. You know, a lot of people teach you that little affirmation. And I would see, someone taught me to put myself in this little eggshell, but the eggshell was always like, felt kind of fragile to me. So I put myself in this like titanium egg. And if I was going to go into a place that I knew was kind of like, if I was going to a funeral or something that was emotionally heavy, or, and again, this was mostly when I was just getting back into this, and so I felt very vulnerable with it. But I would feel into the egg. I would feel into it until I could palpably feel the egg. I would feel like I could feel the cold against my skin, like metal. I would feel it. And then once I could physically feel it, I would believe that it was there. And so I could go into the funeral or go walk out once I kind of had that sense of protection.
In about 30 seconds.
Now it's more like I just emanate. And if I can emanate my vibration in a high space, and it's almost like I don't have to do so much sense of protection.
In about 20 seconds, have you ever been to a funeral and had to explain to the deceased that this is their funeral?
No.
Weird.
I haven't. Mm-mm.
Weird.
But I haven't had that experience. I wish I could say yeah and have a good story.
Damn it! I thought I had a good question there. I thought I had a good question. Rachel, I'm going to get you to hold on. We're going to get ready to go to our final break of the night. Rachel Kirkland's The Spiritual You happens the second. Make that the first Tuesday of every month. Her next appearance on this show will be Tuesday, October 3rd. And we'll get into a big realm of spirituality that night as well. Rachel's down in San Antonio, Texas. You could check out her website, themodernshaman.net. I highly suggest you do. Get a reading from her as well. She's pretty talented. So that's what you kind of have to do. I'm going to get to more of your questions right after this, because I know they are piling up. Bob, Gloria, Kevin, Shar, I see your questions. I will get to them after the break, I promise. We're also going to find out what it's like to help the police and private investigators in cases as well. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott. We will be back with hour number 3 right after this. Stay tuned.
We're getting strange on Saturday nights. Hi there, this is Dave Cruz, and each Saturday, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, I will take you on a tour of the weird and obtuse on Spaced Out Saturdays, from aliens to Sasquatch and every tinfoil hat in between. We got you covered. Join us at spacedoutradio.com for Spaced Out Saturdays. See you there.
Not ready for bed on Saturday night? Right after Spaced Out Saturdays, hop on over to S4 with Corey Ruiz and me, Eric Cooper from Forest Moon Paranormal. With S4, there are no limits to what we try and uncover. From government conspiracies to helping clean up the paranormal, no topic is safe on S4. We get to the heart of the matter, of the subjects you want to learn more about. So tune in on S4 starting at midnight Pacific, 3 a.m. Eastern, only on spacedoutradio.com.
Have you had an experience you can't explain? Would you like someone you can trust to look into it? We have just the place. The SOR Sightlines Report is the place for you to find answers. Whether it's Bigfoot, UFOs, Dogman, ghosts, aliens, or anything strange, the Sightlines Report will get you connected with one of our expert researchers to find out what's going on. All of your personal information is kept 100% confidential. The SOR Sightlines Report, a place for you to find the answers you need. Only at spacedoutradio.com.
Hi there. I'm Butch Witkowski, lead investigator with UFO Cop. On the final Monday of every month, you can listen to me and host Dave Scott on Spaced Out Radio's Strange Days. We're going to get to the heart of the matter when it comes to what's happening out there. People are seeing and experiencing things from ET contact to Bigfoot, and I want to hear about it. Your experiences are what we investigators need to help solve these unknown mysteries. So tune in at spacedoutradio.com to the final Monday of every month from Butch Witkowski's Strange Days.
This is Eric Markham, news editor for Spaced Out Radio's The Encounter Online. We have put together a great team of writers and journalists from all over the world to bring you top-quality paranormal stories. From alien encounters to the latest conspiracies, you won't find any of that fake news here. True stories and top-notch reporting as we look to bring these experiences to the mainstream. The Encounter online, only at spacedoutradio.com.
Do you want to know the truth? Do UFOs exist? Are aliens real? Are the governments hiding the biggest secret in history? We're UFO Seekers, and we're on a hunt for the truth. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow along with us as we journey across the United States, visiting UFO hotspots and alien hotspots, trying to document the UFO phenomenon. Catch us on Spaced Out Radio every third Monday of the month as we discuss Area 51, UFOs, and more. And also, don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube.
Patrolling the Pacific Northwest, we are always on the lookout for the strange and unassuming stories that real people are experiencing. Hi, I'm Vincent Zunza from Pacific North Weird. Me and Alexandra Sullivan have teamed to bring to you those odd stories that never seem to make it into the mainstream. Stories so weird that will leave you scratching your head wondering, is this real? It's as real as it gets with Pacific North Weird. You can watch our videos right here at spacedoutradio.com.
Become more intimate and interactive with Spaced Out Radio. Join our Space Travelers Club with your new membership. For $5 a month, we'll provide you with special access to the website, monthly prize draws from books to psychic readings, along with monthly newsletter, private interviews, and more. Sign up today to be part of Spaced Out Radio's experience.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
Don't have time to listen to Spaced Out Radio live? Wherever you are, the car, the office, the shower, or even if you're traveling, we're right here for you. Each Spaced Out Radio show can be found on iTunes, TuneIn, and on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. It's the perfect way for you to catch up on our shows. For more information, just head over to our website, spacedoutradio.com, and tune in to us today.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories. Are you listening?
Strange creatures lurking in the night, the sounds of wood knocking in the forest, odd happenings right out of a fictional world. These are the reports I love. Hi there, this is author Ronald Murphy, and I would love it if you join me and Spaced Out Radio host Dave Scott the second Wednesday of every month on our journey into the unknown land of cryptozoology at spacedoutradio.com. From Mothman to Frogman and everything in between. Hey, they don't call me the crypto guru for nothing.
It's Cosmic Sundays with me, Elizabeth Anglin, in Cosmic Passport. Let me take you down a 3-hour spiritual journey where we will get into everything from ET contact to Psychic Sundays. It's a journey of listening and learning together with some of the best professionals in their fields. You can tune in to Cosmic Passport at spacedoutradio.com every Sunday, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern.
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and hashtag Spaced Out Radio, and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show. Now, back to the program.
Welcome back to the third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Great to have you with us. Tomorrow night on the program, Matt Landman joins us. He is an expert in chemtrails. We're going to see what they are spraying up in our skies and why. We get going at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern time at spacedoutradio.com. We want to welcome in everyone listening in on WQEE 99 Rock the Key down in Noonan, Georgia, home of The Walking Dead. We are live as well on the United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM in New Orleans, and over 160 countries around the world. Great to have you with us as well. We're live on KTLK, The Fringe FM, Renegade Talk Radio out of Las Vegas, and if you're listening in on Revolution Radio, the Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Head on over to freedomslips.com and donate today. Bill Cardwell has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Juglandacious. Juglandacious is your password. Make sure you use it wisely, Space Travelers, as Bill sets the password each and every night right here on the mighty SOR. Now, if you want to follow us on social media, you can do so on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Use the hashtag Spaced Out Radio if you want to connect with me live during the show as well. You can give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. You can also connect with us on our SOR Space Travelers Club on Facebook if you want to chat live with a group of great people during the show as well. You can also follow me on Instagram, Dave Scott SOR. Listen to us on iHeartRadio in the United States. Tune in. You can subscribe and download our shows from iTunes. We're on TalkStream Live as well. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including joining the SOR Space Travelers Club for $5 a month. You can read up on the Encounter Online, our news section. My blog is on there as well. You can also check us out for videos. UFO Seekers, Tim Doyle, Leslie Mitchell Clark's Contact TV, shop at our Spaced Out Radio store, or rock out to some Bumblefoot. We got everything going on at spacedoutradio.com. Tonight, we are into the third and final hour of The Spiritual You with Rachel Kirkland. Rachel's website, themodernshaman.net. Rachel joins us the first Tuesday of every month. The next time she will be on will be Tuesday, October 3rd. Rachel, welcome back.
Thank you.
Great.
Third and final hour.
I know, it's gone by so
It goes
fast.
by fast.
I know.
It does.
I know. I don't know whether to be apologetic for that or just say, let's rock and roll and get it done. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think that's awesome. When you get lost in conversation, isn't that awesome? You know what I mean? It just means it's flowing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I would like to start off this hour with some questions from our audience because they are starting to pile up here, and we definitely want to get them in.
Awesome. I love that. I love interactions from the audience.
All right.
That energy.
Excellent. Let's start with Bob's question here because he's been waiting a while for this one. He says, Rachel, how do your elders feel or see about this perilous period of time we are in right now?
By elders, does he mean those on the other side?
Or First Nations elders?
Ancestors? Oh, yes. In terms of Cherokee?
Yeah.
Okay. They don't have I was going to say they don't have a negative view, but there is a sense that it is a cycle that will finish itself out. Like it's playing itself out. There's not a sense of things are out of control. They just feel like it's a cycle that's being completed, and whether it sounds kind of negative, but whether humanity stays on Earth during that cycle or not is yet to be determined. They feel like Mother Earth will always win out. Let me say it that way.
Understandable that Mother Earth will always win out, but do we survive our own disastrous path that we seem to be on right now?
I don't know that there is a consensus in the elders about that. I feel like there's a hope. I feel like there is a consensus of hope that we make those choices. But in terms of the cycle playing out, there's a sense that we're in a final cycle, like we either have to step up or step out.
Right. And that makes sense. That makes sense. The problem is these damn politicos all over the world seem to be controlling what we can and cannot do. Let's get to Gloria's question. And she says, there seems to be all of these forest fires, hurricanes, earthquake swarms, all natural disasters affecting all of North America. Is it true about disasters occurring to countries that are crossed by total eclipses?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I have no idea. I'll tune into it because I don't know just from my own mental mind. Can you read that one more time and then I'll tune in?
Absolutely. Let me just grab it here. Give me 2 seconds. My computer has decided to go into 1995 mode. Here we go. All right. Her question is, there's been a lot of forest fires, hurricanes, and earthquake swarms, all natural disasters affecting North America. Is it true about disasters occurring to countries that are crossed by total eclipses?
That's so interesting. I never would have really put those things together, but Spirit was saying yes. So Spirit basically said yes to that flat-out question of, is it true? There is a sense of basically it's heightening all the energy that's underneath the ground, as well as like right on top of the ground. The way that they're showing it to me is that there's almost like this bubble of air right on top of the. I wish I knew what that's called. I want to say like ionosphere or something. You know what I mean? It's like before you get way up in the sky. I don't know what that's called, but anyway, that layer and the layer underneath the earth feel like wherever that line is that goes through with the eclipses, it almost feels like it lights it on fire.
Gotcha.
Like the heat, like it literally like activates it.
All right, let's move on. Let's get to Char's question. She is asking, what does the other side look like when you are overlooking it?
It depends on where I'm looking from or like what I'm looking at. It's not like a one space. Let me see how I should answer that. Let me tune into that a little bit. What does the other side look like when I'm looking?
When you're overlooking it.
When I'm overlooking.
Or just peering into it. Let's make it easy.
It looks different depending on what I'm looking at and where I'm looking from. So if I'm going to the other side, like if I'm, say for instance, remembering a past life and staying with my body after I transition out. So if I've literally left the body and I'm almost like moving into that as my dominant dimensional space, not so much just trying to tune into it to see it instant, but actually like being a part of that and that being my dominant space. From there, it looks to me, there's a lot of darkness or kind of voids of space, basically. It feels like a lot of space, not like actual space, but it just feels like there's a lot of, I guess, area that doesn't have any color, and then there'll be colors that come into it, like spirits to me look like colors. They look like different forms of almost like waveforms. Some of them look kind of like scarves. They're kind of etheric looking, you know, like floaty. They also have like a sound, like kind of like what you would call someone, but it's almost like they have a sound, like their name is a sound. It's just their native vibration has like a hum or a sound to it. Some of them are a little bit more like song type, and some are just like a hum, vibrational. But you can also feel it, even though you don't have form. But it feels like heat, or like, it's funny, like when you would get really, really close to the sun, you would think it would almost like burn you, but it's just more like the warmth almost goes through you. And then from there, it's like depends on what I'm looking at. Like if I turn around and like look back at Earth, sometimes I have almost like eyes that just spirits. They don't necessarily see the form unless I want to focus on the form. So a lot of times when I'm in that other side and I'm looking down on the earth and I'm viewing people kind of moving and doing things, it'll look kind of like highways. You know what I mean? Like little spirits going here, there, here, there. And it looks like little spheres or like little energy blobs, like little, like a little, they don't have a total sense of form. Like it's not totally consolidated, but it's more like a little circle of energy, and it'll be a certain color. The closer and closer you get to it, the more colors you'll see. It's not just one color. It's like a lot of colors that make up that color. Also, there's like little strands or tapestries the closer and closer you get to it, too. But I'll see them kind of moving around like almost like little highways, and then sometimes they'll vibrate with a certain question. People will have, like if, I call them like soul questions. Like people will just, there'll be something kind of at their core level that they're asking or wanting to know. And I'll see that question. And when I say see it, it's like they're vibrating at it, and it changes their color a little bit. It changes the tone of the sound that they're making a little bit. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's just looking back at the earth. I know it sounds crazy. It's almost like this weird little highway of lights, of these little spherical lights that are entities, that are people. And depending on like I said, it's more looking at it from an energetic level. If I choose to see the body, then I can just think about seeing the body, and then I'll see the form, and it'll be way more like a typical movie, you know, zooming in on a day in the life of a person on Earth.
Let's get to Kevin's question here. He is asking, and by the way, Kevin has an amazing beard. It's probably at least 8 to 10 inches long. Great beard, Kevin.
I laughed earlier when you were like talking about beards, and you said something like, unless you're a girl, maybe not.
Yeah. Well, Kevin has one of those big masculine beards. Very impressive. And he is asking, could reoccurring dreams be glimpses into our past lives?
Yes. Yes. I think those, a lot of times, are memories. And the way you can kind of tell, I tell people to, first of all, when we're remembering past lives, they typically tend to be first person. So you're in the body looking through the eyes. Other dreams, if you'll notice, sometimes you can shift perspective, or you almost seem to be out of the body, omniscient, kind of viewing a scene. And when we're remembering past lives, it tends to be first person. We're not doing anything supernatural. You know what I mean? We're not flying. We're like walking. We're on very first person experiential kind of experience. Like we're actually living it out. There's also a very deep emotional kind of trigger or memory from past life memories or reoccurring dreams that are like that. They have a lot of emotional weight to them, more so than other random dreams. And then they also have a sense of time associated with them. A lot of times there'll be a sense of an era, or you can look at the clothing. It will be kind of tied to, that's why I was asking you, Dave, when you were talking about that, dream that you had, that was a sense of a different timeline, because it didn't have, it almost felt like it was within this same timeline. Other past lives, if you're remembering them from dreams, they'll have a sense of an era attached to them, or a particular clothing, or a particular feel of a certain area and what it looked like historically in that time. Like you can almost set it in time.
All right, let's get to Tripp's question. He is asking, is it you seeing future lives or just deja vu?
I don't really know how to define deja vu. To be honest with you, I don't know that there's a clear definition. I don't know that I think up with a clear definition of that. So it would depend on how he defines deja vu. Can they send follow-up questions? Like, can I ask him?
Absolutely.
Tell me what you mean by deja vu.
Okay, so it'll take a little bit.
Define how he defines deja vu, then I'll answer it depending on how he defines that.
All right. While we're waiting for Tripp to define deja vu. Let's get to Bill's question. Rachel, can you feel or see anything other than what we have all seen on the news about what is likely to happen in North Korea?
Oh, goodness. First of all, let me say I don't own a TV. So in terms of politics and what's going on, I'm very present and organic with my life. So I'll look into it, but I have no idea in terms of just like on my own mental mind where that's coming from. So I don't know what everyone is seeing because, again, like I said, I don't have a TV, so I don't know what everyone is seeing. But in general, it feels like threats that never come to fruition. Like people talk and don't walk. You know what I mean? There's a sense of just threats with no. By threats, I just mean like big talk, political talk. It just feels like. But nothing ever really happens. Nothing's ever really done. Not a lot of progress. There's just not a lot of movement. As much as it may seem like there's movement, it doesn't come to fruition.
Absolutely. I could see that happening too.
Well, maybe everyone is already seeing that. I don't know because I don't have a TV. What is already out there, but that's what I see.
I would agree with you on that one. I don't see anything happening there either. I think it's a bunch of limp-wristed, veiled threats that eventually Russia and China will clamp down on the little wannabe nuclear weapons guy, for a polite term to use, Yeah. Bill, I think it's like, that guy who plays hockey who's very chippy, and then when somebody finally drops the gloves, they turtle. Let's put it that way. Let's put it in hockey terms. There you go. Except for your Toronto Maple Leafs. They turtle all the time. Anyways, let's get back to Trip here. He says, in his definition of deja vu, is feeling like or seeing things like they have already happened.
It's a little different because I can see multiple timelines. So deja vu, to me, it's almost like a feeling too. There's a feeling to it of like, whoa, this almost feels like, oh, I've already been here before, and it's almost like you're realizing it or kind of having it as it's playing out in real life. I always think of that Matrix, where he says, deja vu is a glitch in the Matrix. Do you know what I'm talking about on the Matrix movies? I'm bad if I'm referencing the movie and I don't know the exact quote. But it feels more like that. Not so much that deja vu is actually things that have happened in the future. When I tune into them, there's a staticness to them. Like, they're almost like, I tend to think of, if everything that can exist does exist, I'm just tuning into a reality of where that exists. So I feel like it's almost like a place I'm tuning into, and I'm viewing it there. When I feel deja vu type of stuff, like you're referring to, it's almost like a energetic memory or a sense of awareness that those things do exist somewhere else, but it's more like a quick flash of it. I don't know that deja vu has a sense of, like, sustaining it. You know what I mean? Like, if I'm viewing a future, I can actually, like, okay, I'm going to zoom in here, I'm going to zoom out here, I'm going to move in 5 years, now let's check out 7 years, now let's look at 20 years. I have a sense of, like, actually, like, moving around in that timeline or that future. With deja vu, it feels very instantaneous, also very reactive instead of proactive.
All right, let's move on to Claudia's question here. She is asking, Rachel, have you ever seen or been told what to share from the other side to us living in this century that could help jump our consciousness in the here and now?
Yes. not like, oh, you need to preach this to the masses, Rachel. It is very individualized, but and it's going to sound totally cheesy, but it always comes back to love. Like, that's a very core central message. And love and how that's lived out is a huge jump in consciousness. If we were going from love instead of fear. If we would continually choose love over fear. That's a huge one that I feel like Spirit comes back to over and over and over.
Does that ever get annoying when you want specifics?
It's so funny. Yeah, when you're the messenger, it's like you're just the messenger. But it's funny when somebody will ask some question like, oh, something they want, or like, tell me what my guides have to say to me, and their guides are like, lighten up, or they say something that's just like, dang it, can you give them something really cool? Can you just tell them something that seems like totally transformational? And yet, it is exactly what I need to hear. But sometimes I laugh at the messages because it's always exactly what's relevant for them. But it's funny on this side as a messenger. Yeah, sometimes I'm like, dang it. Can you give them, and sometimes I'll say that, I'll like, come on, give them something a little more specific, or give them something that's a little bit more, and they will, but yeah.
We're going to move on to another subject here with you, because you have helped out police forces, you have helped private investigators and families figure out what's happened to their loved ones, whether they are alive or deceased. Explain how that works. Again,
it's a case-by-case basis. It depends also on who is kind of bringing me in to what's going on. Also, there's a big difference between like a kidnapping case or a homicide case or a missing person case. They all differ. And then also they differ depending on where it's located, and without, I don't want to disrespect any previous clients or give to their families or anything, but just in general, if like working with kidnapping cases, I've worked with kidnapping cases that are in, say, Mexico, with ransoms and things like this, and that's very different than working on any sort of like homicide case or something in the U.S. because the police are not always your trusted sense of like working with you. Sometimes they're involved, or there's a sense of who do I share my information with. Also depends on who kind of brings me in. Like I said, if it's the family that's bringing me in, and if it's not the legal law enforcement, sometimes if the family really wants to bring me in, but the law enforcement does not, that's a tricky situation also, because they're not really validating the information that's coming through, versus having an open investigator who says, I'm open to it, but if the investigator's open to it, then it tends to be looking for clues, looking for evidence, not so much. I think people want to always like, where's the body, or where's the end all kind of, but when it comes down to it, the stuff that's really needed is a lot of the evidence type of stuff, because you can't go into a place without a warrant. You have to have evidence to even go into, if I see a body underneath someone's house in this garage or something, we can't just like barge in and go, hey, this is where we think it is. We have to first find all the trails that give, and the trails have to give logical, sound evidence. They have to, so it's like we have to work all the puzzle pieces even to be able to get up there. And sometimes the puzzle pieces won't work up legally or logistically. Like, there's so much paperwork and red tape and stuff like that. You wish you could just go and get the remains, but a lot of times it's really difficult. It may be on public property. There's like, we've had stuff underneath hotels, like in cement. It's just, it's a lot harder than it seems like it would just be a real easy thing. So it depends very much on just the situation of the particular case and what they're looking for. Like, again, if I'm working with law enforcement, there's a lot of evidence that's focused on, not so much the individual. And then if I'm working with family, a lot of times it is individual, and then kidnapping stuff. And that's a really different energy too. It's kind of like you're on call 24/7 because things change all of a sudden. You know, they may come back with a different ransom or something else that they want, or the location moves. They're moving them, and there's a lot that's really, really time focused when it comes to kidnapping stuff, having to be just literally on call 24 hours a day, anytime. You know, when they call, you have to be there. Just tuning in a lot in terms of keeping up with the shifting and moving of things.
What was it like the first time you got contacted by a private investigator or a police department to help out on a case?
Terrifying.
How did that go? Because none of us know how that works.
I didn't want to do it. Oh my gosh. That was like, that's how spirit works for me. Like, the one thing I was like, okay, I'll get serious about it, but I just don't want to do like scary stuff, you know? And then of course, like the first thing, that's what I predominantly started out in. It's just what spirit started sending me before I ever sat down one-on-one with a client just to talk as a medium. I mean, I was doing all these missing person cases and things. And the first one I got called in was probably one of the most gruesome, of course. Just, again, I don't want to disrespect the family and give details away, but just a lot, you know, the person was deceased, but we didn't know that, I don't think, at the time. When I got called in on it, I had it was the teacher that I took the psychic development class from, that kind of just taught me the lingo, you know, like taught me what remote viewing was and what clairvoyance was, clairsentience, clairaudience, just learned all the kind of like basics of things. She used to work on missing person cases and homicide cases, and she called me in to help her on one. And she said, "This is, you know, I think you'd be really good at this. It's something you want to do." And I was like, "No way, Jose." And then Spirit kept pushing it. I told you, when Spirit tells me something, it's like I can't say no after a while. They just keep hitting me over the head with it. So she eventually reached out. And so the one thing I said was, I told Spirit, if I do this, like, you're going to have to really help me and emotionally not let me get caught up. I was really worried I was just going to emotionally get too, like, it would just be too hard for me emotionally. And that during that first case, I refused to go on site. That was one thing. I was like, I don't want to be on site. I don't want to see a body. I don't want to. Because I can just see it sitting here in my desk, I was like, I'd rather just be on the phone, and I'll just tell you what I see, and you guys can kind of go and walk around. So they were on site, and that psychic, you know, lady friend of mine that had brought me in on the case was just talking to me on the phone, and I was telling her what I was seeing. I was telling her the street sign, the name of the little park, just what the trees looked like. It was like this, it was under this kind of overpass area. So I was just describing, and they were just walking until they found the body. And that was a sense of safety somewhat. I mean, I saw the images, so it was traumatic in my image. But the weird thing was, as soon as it was over, I had no residue of that. Like, it didn't stay with me. I was afraid I would, like, go to sleep and have nightmares that night about it. And I didn't know, you know, how it would affect me. But I felt like Spirit was really good with kind of respecting my emotional space afterwards. So it gave me a lot more peace that, like, okay, you know, if this is something that Spirit's wanting me to do, then they're going to uphold my sense of free will and asking not to have emotional residue afterwards. So that was the first one. And the first one, I think, because it was really pretty quick, like, you know, I saw a certain town, I saw a certain street, so they went to find that street. I don't even know if it was, I can't remember if it was only, I think it was like a street that was crossed with something else. I can't remember, some sort of crossing. But anyways, that they were able to identify pretty quickly, and, you know, within a few hours found it. So it was really fast also for me to feel like I got feedback, you know what I mean? And it made me feel like, wow, maybe I should be doing this. You know, it's kind of like you don't think you can do it until you do, and then you're like, wow, this actually is working. You know, you don't know until you do it.
How did you get the police to take you seriously? Because there's always this point where a lot of law enforcement absolutely, from what I have heard, refuse to go down the psychic road.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, it completely depends on who you're working with, for sure. Some are very, like you said, very against it, and just it's ridiculous in their eyes, and some are more, I think, compassionate towards the family. And then once the evidence starts coming in, at least from my experience, the best kind of work I've had with law enforcement is with the Chicago PD. I don't know why, but for some reason, I don't know why, but just for me, the cases that I've done in Chicago, they were way more open. And I started drawing maps, and I think seeing a map, you know, and I'm sitting here in Texas drawing this map, and so, you know, of the neighborhood and where the houses are laid out and things like this. So I think when the family brought them things like that, they start to be more open to it. And then when the evidence, like I said, if we start to get an evidence trail and we can get something that's got some sort of ground to it, they're a little more open. Plus, I find that if I don't like to physically be there. And I feel like that helps a little bit too, because, not in a rude way, but on an ego standpoint, they're figuring it out kind of on their own. You know, it doesn't look like I'm the one doing it. It looks like they can get the credit for it. You know what I mean? And that's fine with me. It's about the family, and it's not about, like, who gets the credit. I don't care.
Now, you mentioned credit. Is that something that happens a lot with police forces? Because here's one thing I have learned. You know, let's take Anonymous, for instance, and everybody knows about the group Anonymous. Anonymous, even though they are slagged and put down by the police, even some members arrested by police, Anonymous does a lot of work in tipping off police forces from around the world in regards to things like child pornography and child trafficking. And yet the police would never, ever mention that they are in cahoots that way with Anonymous to get those tips and the evidence that they need to make arrests. It's similar to what you were saying about credit, because you may tip off police where a weapon is, or where a body is, or where a major clue is, or a suspect is, but they can't come out publicly and say, well, our team psychic is the one who tipped us off.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
No, I've never had that. I've never had that from the police. No. I've never had them publicly say that they came from me. The family will say it, but I've never had it come from the law enforcement.
And you're okay with that?
Oh, I think that's very common. Yeah, that's fine. I mean, that's not my point. My point is not to, obviously, I could care less. Like, you know, that's not where I come from. Like, in terms of my heart, the point is not to get credit. As long as we, you know, can try and find the person, or do, you know, the end-all goal is just resolution for the family. So if we can get anywhere near that, I'm very happy.
Is it something you like to do?
No. If I'm being totally honest with you, I mean, I don't do it very much anymore. The kidnapping stuff, like I said, you're on call like it's exhausting. You're on call like 24/7, and it's very, very intense energy. Everything is, you know, life or death. It's a very intense energy. To be in just a lot. And once I had kids, I really just was like, I decided to try and step out of that. And that's part of the reason I don't do it really anymore. Every so often, you know, somebody will come to me, or I'll pick something up. But for the most part, that's definitely not my predominant focus anymore at all.
So did you have to step away for emotional reasons?
I stepped away, to be honest, for time, because I wanted a 9-to-5 job. I wanted something with business hours where my kids could be in school and I could work while they were in school. With cases, it's like you're just, if there's evidence, it's like you're just on call 24/7. So when I had babies, I mean, I would be like nursing in the middle of the night and there'd be the kidnapper call, and it was like, I just couldn't do it. I was like, this is just, I can't focus like this.
But what kind of emotional toll does that take on you? When you're, say, looking for a kidnapping of, say, a 14-year-old girl who was coming home from school, a straight-A student not involved with anything. Maybe you've had something like that. I don't know. But let's say a child who's been just vanished on their way home from school or something along those lines.
Yeah. You can't not have emotional toll. It does. I mean, it just does. It does. It breaks your heart. There's really no other way. I mean, it just does. And I think I have a unique perspective in that I've seen the other side, and I oftentimes, can also communicate to the family if they are on the other side and have transitions and are no longer, living here, then I can still connect them in that way and say, your daughter is so happy and she's just running and jumping and showing you that she has full use of her limbs, and she's just, whatever it may be, that I have that perspective to where I can at least bring a little sense of peace, that it doesn't end where it ends. It doesn't end just with the physical. It's hard just being around families that are dealing with such grief or trauma, and those events, like I said, it's a really intense energy to be a part of. A lot of other careers do the same thing. People who work in funeral homes or people, nurses and ER, it's like very traumatic, just kind of energy to be involved in a lot. And there is a sense, it's strange, to be honest with you, Dave, because too, if I'm working on a homicide case, I may do remote viewing to where I go into the murderer's body, you know what I mean? And I'm experiencing it as them, behind their eyes, and emotionally as them. And so there's a whole lot of spectrum there, and it's different, but it all definitely has an emotional toll, but it also gives such a broader perspective to where things are just, you see it from so many different points of view, that even though there's sorrow, there's also joy, there's also so many more emotions attached to every experience.
When you are having these cases, especially when you were dealing with the kidnappings or missing people, what was it like explaining to a family that their loved one was no longer living? Did you ever do that?
As you can imagine, that's a hard conversation. Yes. Some of them are still not ready to accept that. They'll just hire another psychic. I've had that, where they still don't want that answer. And if that's all I can give them, that's all I can give them. So I've had that experience several times to where I've said that, and they've just said, well, we don't accept that. We'll just keep looking. And then I've also had, like I said, I shared a minute ago, experiences where I've been able to connect as a medium afterwards and communicate things back that have helped the family have a sense of resolution, have a sense that their child is in a place of peace and joy and still with them and acting kind of like their little guardian angel. I've had those type of, experiences where it's almost like helps the family move past the trauma of the event and move into a place of remembering that entity, remembering that soul, because sometimes you get so caught up in the energy of the event or the mystery or the solving, it becomes this kind of like obsessive focus that, not that you forget about the person, but it's like you forget about the energy of the person, the constant interaction, the talking to them, just the communication. So to open up communication again and just to have this conversation back and forth, for some clients, that was an amazing, even though, you know, the conversation is saying they're no longer with us here, but we have an open communication here, that we can still talk to them. That's been huge for a lot of families.
Have you ever had cases where people have gone missing that they are no longer on this planet?
Yeah, I have.
And I don't mean death. I'm saying abducted.
Yeah. Yeah, more than once. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
What's that like in dealing with telling someone that aliens took their son or daughter or mother or father?
You know what? That's happened twice. It's only happened twice for me. And both times, the family already had an intuitive inkling that was the case. They weren't surprised.
So they knew that their loved one was an ET contactee.
Yeah. Or they had, both of them, and again, it's only happened to me twice, so I don't have a ton of experience with it. But they both had seen UFOs around their houses, had personal experience. They both were very open and not surprised.
So when somebody, say, has that happen, if it's happened twice that you've dealt with, I need to know.
I lost you there for a second.
I need to know that, because I'll be honest with you, I'm asking to go for a ride. I don't know how long it's going to be. You know, but were these people asking, or were they taken against their will?
Let me tune into that. I can't remember off the top of my head when you asked that. Let me just tune back in. So one of them was asking, I don't know that you would say was asking, but was in enough communication that they chose not to come back. Like had been on multiple trips out and then chose not to come back in. The other was not so positive and didn't necessarily have a sense of, like, still had fear involved in it and didn't have so much a sense of control.
So when you're dealing with something along those lines, and you've only dealt with it twice, does it work the same as, say, working a missing persons case with the police or a private investigator?
No, I mean, yes and no. Again, depends if it's a family that's hiring or bringing me in on things. It kind of is, I would say no in the fact that it's like it becomes this wall. It's like once you know that, then there's really nowhere to go with it other than a sense of communication with them still, like mediumship, you know, and still communicating. In both cases, we did that, and I just helped communicate. One of them, I don't feel like, when I did feel like they left, I hate talking negative, or it feels heavy, but I don't feel like they stayed in the body, like they weren't living for very long. The other was still, like, could come back anytime. You know what I mean? There's a sense of back and forth.
Could you still communicate with the one who left on his own fruition?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like when we were talking to the family and they were asking. Yeah. Sure. Yeah, you don't have to be, like, crossed over. I mean, remember, on the other side, and kind of outside of this dimensional space, time is very different. And essentially, you could connect with your dead self. You know what I mean? Because there's no time on the other side. So it's kind of, even though they're not necessarily moving out of the other side, they're moving out of this dimensional time and space experience on Earth.
Do we know who took him?
Does he know, or are you talking about like a specific race
what
or
species?
planet?
What species of extraterrestrial took him?
Yeah, I don't know what the name of the species is. Yeah, but I do know that he knows them, and I know what they look like, and yeah.
Am I getting too personal? You can shut me up if you want.
I do. When it comes to cases, I'm really careful to try not to give too much to where people feel like, yeah, that's my family.
I can understand that. I can understand that.
Just out of respect for them, yeah. But so I try and just kind of walk that line out of respect. But I feel like it's fine at this point. I mean, if I go into too many details, but.
So if somebody like this gentleman, I'll rephrase this. If somebody like this gentleman wanted to come back, could he?
Yes. Yes. That individual, yes. I mean, I would say that really succinctly because he said that. That if he wanted to come back, he could. That this was his, volition and choice. He felt like it was part of his purpose. So, and as kind of an intermediary. And I feel like he probably will, but I'm not sure that he'll come back onto this timeline and that it will be relevant for this being part of his family. But I do know I helped them in terms of contact, like being able to, teaching, he was older, so not a child, basically, a young adult. So I did help the family learn to channel and, write messages back and forth, so they're in communication regularly with him. Like, I don't have to do that for them anymore. I just taught them how to do it, and so, yeah.
So they've got the signal in order to...
Mm-hmm.
I want that signal, man. I want that signal.
I think you'll get it, Dave. If you want it that bad, you'll get it.
They're coming. I know they're coming. Carl and his friends are coming. That's all I know.
Well, if it makes me wonder about these dreams that you don't remember, or your time when you're sleeping and you have no memory of them. Sometimes I feel like, do you ever wake up with sleep paralysis, anything like that?
You know what? A couple weeks ago, I woke up and I got out of the shower, and Mrs. SOR says, "What are those two scratches at your lower left of your back?" And they were about 3 inches long apiece. I said, "I have no idea," and they looked fresh. You know when you get those stuttering type scratches, like if you get scratched by a cat, it kind of the claw kind of stutters.
Mm-hmm.
5 hours, 6 hours later, I went to check on those scratches because I couldn't figure out what they were. They were gone, completely gone. I have never had that in my life. Ever.
That you remember. I mean, she noticed. You know what I mean? Like, if you had been going along and not had her notice, how would you have known you could have had them before?
Well, true enough.
They're on your back and you're maybe not seeing them.
True enough, but it was weird. It wasn't so much that they were there. Right? It was the fact that 5-6 hours later, there wasn't even a mark on my back. Now, I've been scratched by cats before. I have cats. And I have never had that happen in my life. Where all of a sudden, a few hours later, the scratch is completely gone. Like, not even a remnant mark, red mark of it being there. It was gone.
Yeah, to me, those things, and just the whole reason I said, about your dream space is because there's just a sense that it's a little too, I don't know, it just feels a little too usable, like the fact that you don't remember them almost every night, and yet certain dreams that you do have seem to be message dreams. that you're remembering. So it feels like there's a purpose of why you're not remembering them, or that they're there and they're being swept and kind of like not remembering on purpose.
No idea. We're down to our last few minutes here on the show. I want to get to a couple questions. I know. Flown on by. Claudia is asking, Rachel, when you feel yourself absorbing other energies, what do you do to get rid of that energy from your body?
First of all, I think just recognizing that it's not my energy is huge. That took a while to recognize that it's not me, like when you feel like depressed out of nowhere and you're like, where is this coming from? I swear, this is just strange. I think just realizing that it's not your energy gives a sort of detachment to it. So that helps, just realizing this is not me. This may be someone else's. As funny as that sounds, a lot of people don't have that recognition. They just think it's them, and they just think, gosh, I'm having these horrible mood swings all the time, or whatever it may be. And then also I shared those kind of visualizations. Some of the time I just within my own intentional focus, I just say, like, this is not mine, and I don't receive it, or I send it back to you. I just get really clear with my intention. Because it's energetic, everything happens on an energetic level. So it only needs you to be energetically aligned with how you want to deal with it, and you will manage it that way. Meaning you just have to mean what you're saying in your head, and the energy will align with that. And I realize that's easy to say, but it's really hard for people to align with it. Like, a lot of times they'll say it with this little bit of like, yeah, I don't really believe what I'm saying, but we'll try it. Okay, and then it has very little energetic, like, application because they're not fully aligned with what they're saying. So you can just literally send it back or say, I don't receive it. And then also you can have those protection techniques of, like, visualizing, the bubble, or like a plexiglass energy. Like, once you start realizing that you're taking on other ones, you can almost like, I always go to visualizations because I'm so clairvoyant. Like, everything happens in pictures for me. So I can see myself, like, unzipping a layer of my etheric body and, like, stepping out of it and being like, that's their energy, it's not mine. And just walking away like it's a coat that I just pulled off. If I feel it physically, like tangibly, like I feel physically heavy, or I feel kind of nauseous or sick, I may go take like a salt bath. Salt always feels like it detoxes me, or steam. It just pulls those toxins out when I feel like it's actually, like, literally physically in my body at that point. It's been sitting around for a while. Salt baths or steam help.
All right, let's move on to another question here, because we literally have about a minute and a half before we got to start shutting things down. Robert is asking, when Spirit tells you something, does it start as a whisper and grows to a yell, or is it just a normal level of talking for you?
Depends on the spirit I'm talking to, or who's talking to me. And if I'm feeling a direction and I'm not listening to it, maybe it starts like that, like a whisper. I would say they probably do. I think he's right online about that, like starting like the whisper. And then maybe if I'm not listening, then it gets louder and louder. But if I'm following very intuitively, then I probably stays with that whisper.
Rachel, thank you so much for being on Spaced Out Radio tonight. What a pleasure to have you back on.
Of course, I loved it. And everybody was so awesome with their questions. Thank you, guys.
Not a problem. Rachel will be back on Tuesday, October 3rd with The Spiritual You. Her website is themodernshaman.net. Rachel, you hold on. I'm going to wrap this thing up. Mr. Ron Bumblefoot THAL rocking us on out with Little Brother Is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio. Tomorrow night on the program, we get into the chemtrails. What are they? Chemtrails, contrails, are we being sprayed? Matt Landman joins us. He's one of the foremost researchers on this topic. We get going at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time at spacedoutradio.com. I want to say thank you to my team, Everett Thiemer, Eric Markham from The Encounter Online, Tim Doyle and Jolene Lammers. Web design, social media, Catherine James. Our great announcer brings me into every show, Bob Davis. And our Director of Business Management, Kim Gandy, along with LMC Media, Leslie Mitchell-Clark out of Toronto. Kim, be safe. And if you're in Florida, get the hell out. Just do that. Head north. Get away from Hurricane Irma. We're sending positive thoughts your way. But most of all, I want to say thank you to all of you in the chat rooms. All of you on Twitter, sharing this show, telling your friends what we're all about. That's how we grow together, my friends. Because together, we own the night. We'll talk to you in 21 hours from now. Mr. Bumblefoot, do us a favor. Take us home. Good night.